Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to the program. It's the Jeff Gerstmann Show for October 17th. I'm back to host once again. My name is Jeff Gerstmann. Hello. Welcome to the program. Does music sound different to you? I feel like I'm hearing I'm hearing some of the percussion in a way that I've never heard it before, man. It's really bringing out the mids. I don't know what happened. Was there a loose connection somewhere that I fixed when I rewired everything? I don't know. I don't know what the heck's going on. But it sounded pretty different in my headphones, and I don't have a good explanation for that. But hello, we're here. We're back. After I guess 1 week off. After being out last week, where I'm back here, at least for the podcast. We had a baby. We have 3 of them now. We have 3 children under the age of 5, which seems like a lot. And yeah, here we are. My daughter was born Sunday. Time is still something of a. I spent a lot of days over the weekend thinking it was Sunday when it was Saturday, and I have been completely discombobulated by these events. But yes, about a week, a little over a week, and she's great. She's a baby. She lays in places. She breastfeeds. She poops weird. The stuff that babies do, she is doing perfectly, astoundingly perfectly. And the other kids are into it. She's like, they're like, this baby's cool. Though my daughter, who is 4, there's a lot of security. You gotta worry about. So I ran outside real quick to get something out of the car, or whatever it was, and I came walking back in, and my older daughter, is standing in the hallway, holding the baby, and saying, "I love her." And I'm like, yeah, that's great. You can't, you can't, boy, you can't just pick up the baby and walk around with the baby. That's no good. So she has absconded with the baby twice now, and we got to figure that out. And my son, when the baby screams, we got in these little chairs that like will kind of shake a little bit, because the shaking then calms them down or whatever. So he's seen me grab the chair and kind of gently move it up and down in ways that will, calm down the child in some cases. And then so sometimes he'll be walking by looking for a toy, doing something, and he'll see the baby crying, look at her, just go. And just reach out and grab the chair and just start shaking it way too hard. I'm like, okay, that's not good either. Okay, all right, okay. All right, we gotta figure out. We gotta childproof the childproofing. So everyone's doing fine. We had I'll get into it just a little bit here, and we'll move on. But so if you remember, this was kind of an on again, off again thing of like there was that last week there where it thought that it was going to happen a week before it did, and then it didn't, and it drug out until basically the actual due date that we had. But basically we had an appointment to go in and have a baby at that point, and they went in and they turn the crank and fire up the contraption and whatever all right, this baby's coming out, like they do stuff. And there's a lot, people have babies a lot of different ways. they decide they want to have it naturally. They decide they want to have as many drugs as possible, vice versa. There's pros and cons across the board for that sort of stuff. But there is the pain thing they generally do is called an epidural. And what they do is a man comes in who's an anesthesiologist, and he comes in and tells a bunch of really bad jokes while he is putting a weird tube into your back and then hooking that up to medicine, to drugs, fentanyl and other such drugs. That's right, fentanyl. It's not just for street fun anymore. And you know, whatever it is, they mix a cocktail of, here's some stuff that's going to numb the lower half of your body so that you can have a baby in slightly more comfort, or, you know, whatever the case may be. So they're setting my wife up with that. And it's the same guy we had last time. And he was not awesome last time. But, well, he was maybe not awesome this time either. You know, he's like, oh, well, yeah, there's a drug shortage, so we're giving you something a little different. It doesn't get you numb the way it'll feel different, but it's still going to work. It's just you will still be able to feel your legs. But you won't feel the pain. It'll be more of a dull pressure, blah blah blah. You know, he's like going on, and like this is in the middle of like it's getting bad. And so he's running the lines, doing all this stuff. 20 minutes goes by. It's not helping at all. She can still feel everything. It's like, we should probably get the guy back in here, which is how it's gone every time we've had a baby. We have had to get the guy back. Hey, get the guy back in here because the weird tube he ran into my wife's spine isn't working right. So if you could pull it all out and put it back again, yay. So then he started doing some other stuff. In the middle of that, there was a ton of pain, and then the nurse kind of like just checked down below, said, "There's a baby there. You gotta pull all this shit out of her back because go away. There's a baby happening." And so basically, even though she did get 20 minutes of some kinds of drugs or whatever, she kind of had the baby naturally. Because the pain medication didn't really do anything, and then the baby was just there, and so it was time to go. There was no time to like, hey, let's have some medicine, let's do this, so it was just kind of on at that point. And so it went from, hey, we're hanging out with Mr. Jokes, who's sticking drugs in my wife's back, to they've got the leg things out and they're going, we need to get the doctor in here. And then there was a baby. And my wife did amazingly well. Like, for all of that, for all of the, body ripping pain, all of that stuff that was happening at the time, like she did fantastic. Pushed that baby out. And the thing, the downside of getting pumped full of drugs is that when it comes time for the end of the process, my understanding is that the woman has to do a lot of pushing. She has to push very hard, blah, 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 blah. And if you are numb from the waist down, it can be difficult to push. It can be difficult to move those muscles and make all of that happen. And so as a result, even though it was somewhat harrowing in the moment, I will say, she just fucking went, and it happened. And it was like, whoa, holy shit, there's a baby here. It happened very quickly. And then because she had not been pumped full of drugs for hours and hours and hours, she was able to walk like almost immediately afterwards. Like it was, usually it was just like the other two babies we had afterwards, she was out of it for a long time. Like when they sent us off to the recovery room to recover, it was as much for her as it was for the baby. This time, she was like, yeah, that sucked. I don't remember most of it, but it sure seemed bad. Anyway, I'm going to take a shower. I'm going to do this. It was just like she was just kind of like back on her feet much faster this time around. Which, is fucking insane, but here we are. Yeah, so I don't know. It was different. It's different in so many ways because when you've got other kids, you can't The other times we were able to kind of like, it felt like we were separate from the world for a little bit with this new baby. And we're like, this is cool. And everything's quiet. This time it felt like it was just like there was nonstop stuff happening. Whether it was stuff with the kids at home or, just like a variety. It was weird. So, we were there for a couple of days and came home. And I'm still always really blown away that at some point they just go like, all right, here's your baby, get out of here, go figure that out. And you're like, oh boy. So yeah, we're doing good. Baby is putting on weight, and baby is at her second doctor's appointment now. I assume they're just gonna weigh her. They're just gonna like put her on the scale and go, looks good, get out of here. Because that's all doctors ever do. That's not all doctors ever do, but So yeah, that's been the process of the last week, and that's kind of how it's been going. We've been starting to adjust. All the schedules are different. There's a lot. There's a lot. So we're kind of figuring out how life works. Now with new schedule. My daughter, my older daughter has started preschool, so she's now gone 3 days a week doing that stuff. And over the last week, she was gone for a month. It's basically like school started a month ago, but we kept her out until after the baby came. And so she had a big packet of homework to do, mostly like trying to write her name and trace letters and color some stuff and whatever else. So it's like it was this weird moment of just like, yeah, I don't know, we came home with this baby and now I'm doing homework with this one. Like, my other kids, my oldest is 4 and my son is 2. And when we got back, they seemed like fully grown adults or something. It was just like this weird thing. Like we walked back into the world. It was just like, oh my gosh, like everything is happening. And my son is now sleeping in his own room and he's not sleeping down here. And my daughter is now in preschool and all this. Yeah. And it's crazy. Like everything changed, and not just the new baby. It's like everything else changed around it. So it's, it's been a really fascinating, weird week to suddenly be arguing with my daughter about homework. I'm like, no, you can just try it. Just try writing your name. Some of her letters she's got I's down really well. She's got, when it comes to just writing the alphabet in general, she's got her letters that she's extremely good at, and some others that she's, maybe a little less good at, but she's getting there. She's getting there faster than I think I would. Wow. I've got an energy drink here. Let's drink it, and then we'll talk about Spider-Man 2. Among other things. I think this is another one. This is another weird dollar store special. This is Big Game Energy. This window is huge. What's happening here? Sour gummy flavor. Big Game Energy. It's got like a pixelated deer head on it. So they mean business. Yeah, it's like ghetto. It's like it's dollar store bucked up energy. It's I don't know. This has been in the fridge for about 2 weeks, and we're finally gonna get to it. It doesn't smell like anything. It doesn't smell like anything. Weird. That's scary almost. Okay. Well, let's. Ah. Hmm. It's this tastes like Smarties. This tastes like someone crunched up a bunch of Smarties into a water. And then provided it as an energy drink. It doesn't taste bad. It tastes a little watery. Like the flavor is a little weak. Is there any like I need to find out how much caffeine there is in this, if any. Like that's all right. It has an okay. It meets the standard of dollar store energy drinks in so far as it has an American flag on the can. Uh, 100 F. It's got this really long thing on here about like you should be a healthy adult. You should be over 18. Store in a cool, dry place. Don't drink more than 2 of these in a 24-hour period. Each serving contains 150 milligrams of caffeine. Dog, you're giving me that level of warning for 150 milligrams? What are you, the cops? What are you, you're a caffeine teetotaler? You're like, no, I don't know. The local clergy says, I don't know if you should drink more than 2 of these in a day. Like, this is decent. I don't know. At 150 milligrams, I would probably never drink it again. But in terms of taste, it's like, eh. But where does it go on the list? That's the question. Let's look. It tastes powdery. You know? It's certainly no G Fuel Miami Nights. I mean, let's not be crazy here. I would take it over the Rockstar Throwback Edition sugar-free OG flavor. I would take it over Pursuit Energy Grape Zero, as well as Pursuit Energy Orange Zero. I would take it over the Raze Energy Guava Mango. I would prefer a G Fuel PewDiePie. I would also prefer the Solimo Red Energy. The Red Energy. It's better than Bang Radical Skedaddle, which I think is the most recent addition to the list, if I'm remembering correctly here. This is better than that, but it's also weaker than that. So, It's gonna go. Yeah. I would rather drink a Monster Rehab watermelon, and so, what is the name of this mess? Big Game Energy Sour Gummy. Is going to go on the list as our new number 98. Congratulations to the Smarties folks for making it, because now I just want to go buy a big bag of Smarties. Grind them up, snort them, you know, the important stuff. All right. I'm glad this has been sitting in the fridge for weeks. I'm glad to A, get it out of the fridge, and B, get it onto the list and never have to think about it again. Though I would rather drink this Diet Dr. Pepper I have here. Whoa. Though mixing the two is... Video games. Let's talk about them. Marvel's Spider-Man 2. I have not finished the game. I'm still playing my way through it. That's kind of the downside of having a baby. No, it's yeah, it's I managed to fit some time in with it. I have a lot more left to play, is my point. This isn't, I'm not like an hour away from the end. Like I would qualify these as close to first impressions, you know, first couple hours with the game. there's a lot left to see and do. So I don't necessarily have like a review style take on Spider-Man 2 just yet. What I will say is it's great. What I have played of it so far, the intro, the way the game sets itself up and kind of sets you loose in the world, it's just a fantastic looking and feeling and playing game. There's so much vibrance to it, if that makes any sense. They make that game feel alive. The movement, the combat, the options you have at your disposal right out of the game. It's the third one of these they've made, right? And so, you know, they do some smart stuff in terms of like, hey, they're not going to reset you back to the bottom of the tech tree from the first game or anything dumb like that. They give you a tutorial that says like, hey, yeah, no, if you hold this button down, you launch him in the air. And once he's up there, fuck him up like this. And then fuck him up like this. And then if you dodge here, do this and do this. So they walk you through the basics of combat again, which, you know, is useful because I haven't touched one of these since Miles Morales came out, and that's been years now. But the opening set piece is this just big, crazy battle against the Sandman. There's this massive scope of getting to this thing and doing this big fight. And, you know, a lot of it is got its typical scripted stuff and whatever. But like again, that size and the scope of the battle is like mega impressive. It's one of those things you come away from it going like, some games just cost a lot of money to make and they do a good job of showing it. In this game, they are doing a good job of showing it. You play it, you go, this is a big video game. You forget sometimes what big video games are like, because I feel like we have not been getting a lot of those lately. You know what I mean? Like I Starfield, certainly a big expensive video game, but they don't show it. Instead, you look at it and go, okay, yeah, this looks like, but I feel like this game is, again, and part of it is because it is a bombastic comic book, video game. And so the setting certainly lends itself well to that sort of thing, better than, a lot of other games might, but damn, they take advantage of that. They lean into that. They are smart about it. They set you up really well. The whole game is there are two Spider-Mans. There's Peter Parker and there's Miles Morales. It is not a multiplayer game, but you do switch between the two characters. And when you kind of get out of the story-driven stuff, there's a little more like, okay, you can just switch to whichever Spider-Mans you want to have. You got a little bit of this in Miles Morales, but I think one of my favorite things about the dialogue in the game is that both of the Spider-Mans just call each other Spider-Man. Like, hey, Spider-Man. Hey, what's up, Spider-Man? It's real dumb. And so you have a lot of captions that they have to put a little icon next to the captions, like Spider-Man derogatory, whatever. Yeah, I think, my worry still continues to be that, like, Miles Morales was a very tight video game. They did away with a lot of the bloated stuff that you saw in the first Spider-Man. Open world bloat, like side missions and a lot of stuff that you just don't need all of that. Miles Morales, I think, just struck a better balance at having like really good story stuff and appropriate levels of side content that felt like it was worth doing. I haven't gotten deep enough into the game to know one way or the other on that, but as I look at the map and look at if here's what you do to complete a district and do all this stuff, you look at it and go like, man, there might be a whole lot of fucking shit in here. And I am not sure if I'm going to want to do all of that, but I don't have the answer to that question just yet. I think in some of the talk some of the talk around the game and reviews and whatever else, like the impression I'm getting is that it might just have too much side stuff. So that could be a bit of a bummer, I suppose. But they have given, you remember how Miles Morales had all of his electric attacks, the big punch and ground pound and all of this. Here they've got, Peter Parker has like Doc Ock style arms that can pop out for some moves. And the first one of those you get is just like it's like a 6-armed crazy punch thing that is super fun to do. The Spider-Mans have wings now. They have like wing suits. And so when you're done swinging around, you can say, fuck it, let's fly for a while. And that feels really good. And it feels like an appropriate build upon what they have done in the past. That's all I can really, I think that's all I can really say about it so far, because again, I'm relatively early in the game, but in terms of like how it hits you out of the gate and how I'm feeling about it going, like looking forward to playing more of it, it's great. This is like the opening is like, holy shit, this is so cool. Like, I'm happy to be back in this. Like, I'm not a big comic book guy, but I'm happy to be back in this world insofar as the combat, the swinging, the web zips, and all of the kind of traversal stuff that they have put in the game. And now you have the wingsuit on top of that. I think that aspect of the game just feels so good that when it's all firing on its cylinders and everything, like there is almost this Tony Hawk like flow to it of just like, I'm moving around the city and I'm doing this and I'm doing all kinds of cool shit and I'm just having a great time doing it. It's a game that feels good in your hands. And that's the traversal, that's the combat, and so on and so forth. So I'm looking forward to playing more of it. I guess I will apologize for not having played more of it, but we had a baby, so go fuck yourself. So I will get into more of it as I can. Because yeah, it seems very cool. On the side, Tap Ninja is on Steam. It's an idle game, sort of like Idle Slayer, in that it is a ninja that runs on the screen. People are always asking me, what's the hottest idle game? What are the idle games to play? And I never answer them because I rarely feel like any of those games are worth recommending. And I rarely feel like I go, oh, well, you need to be playing Tap Titans 2 or what, even though it's 7 years old. Like I think that there's been a lot of bad shit out there. And Tap Ninja I have been playing. It has been running in the background a lot lately. I was holding my daughter here in one hand, and then I was slicing samurais with the mouse in my other hand for a while, and thinking, man, what am I doing? I'm leveling up. I'm earning more gold to buy more upgrades. That's what I'm doing. And so I've been playing a fair amount of that. There's also I actually do, again, in a world where there are a lot of bad idle games and whatever else, I do want to kind of give a special little shout out here to Install Fee Tycoon, which someone whipped up very quickly as a burn on all of the Unity news by making a clicker that is you clicking to force reinstall games over and over again so that the engine maker you are working for can make more and more money, and eventually you do all, but it's a game that has a little bit of a story to it, and actually has a charming little ending to it also. A lot of these games are just built to be played forever, and some of them include microtransactions to effectively speed up an infinite process. Like, hey, ideally you're gonna play this game forever and ever because the numbers just keep going up. But what if they went up slightly faster in a way that didn't matter in any way, shape, or form? Because there's always more numbers. That's the thing about numbers. There's always more of them. They don't tell you that. There's no highest number, despite what Mr. Show may say. Install fee tycoon, however, is a very simple little thing. It's a good little gag, a good little riff on the Unity news. And then it has a few little mini games and hacking little things that show up. Like you get emails along the way and you're kind of, clearing spyware off of computers or solving quick little puzzles, hacking web pages. And that stuff is just engaging enough to keep you going. And then it's got a charming little ending. So I just want to send a little quick shout out to Install Fee Tycoon. That was a nice little time that I had with that. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 came out on Steam after being exclusive to the Epic Store for the first year of its release. And this was not the year anniversary of it, I don't think. But it finally made its way onto Steam. If you have been following along with this podcast, then you know that the online has been broken in seemingly all versions of Tony Hawk. Certainly the PlayStation versions and the version that's been on the Epic Game Store has been completely fucked. I can't speak. I do not have the game on Xbox, so I don't know for sure if it has been broken there. But my understanding is that it was from reports that I have seen. And so I sent off an email to the person who represents Activision that I talk to whenever Call of Duty is coming out, and said, "Hey, are the other versions of is this going to work? Or is the online going to work when this thing hits Steam? Or are the other versions going to be fixed? Are there going to, what's going on?" The Steam version of the game launched, and the online works on Steam. You can get on there, and I've played multiplayer matches, and it's again, if you have not purchased this game already, this is probably the one to buy because it's the one that works. Because they did not go and fix the other ones, as far as I can tell. I have only really checked on PlayStation, and a weird thing happened. Whatever, it works on PC. You can play it with people. It's a fantastic looking remake of the first two Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games, which are, of course, legendary video games, fantastic video games, and they're incredibly well remade here. This is a great collection. It's a tragedy that it has not led to more sequels of this type. And like, this should have been the foundation for another 10 years of Tony Hawk games. It's that good. Like this could have been the thing that like got this going again, but it didn't, for reasons that are, not worth rehashing here. I fired up the PlayStation version, and it actually seemed like it connected to a server for a minute there. And then I buttoned out of the menu and buttoned back in, and then it never connected again. So I don't know what the hell happened. I thought maybe they're like, oh, maybe they fixed it across all versions, and Tony Hawk's just going to work everywhere, and that'll be good for everyone who already bought that game. But it seems like the PlayStation version was still broken last time I checked. So that version on Steam runs great, runs really well on the Steam Deck. So bear that in mind if you're so equipped, I suppose. Because it just feels great. It's a wonderful video game. I don't remember if we talked a lot about Forza Motorsport last time we podcasted, because it's been it's been a couple weeks here. But Forza Motorsport is now out. That is the 8th Forza Motorsport game. And meaning it is not Forza Horizon, the more open world racing game. This is the more serious, get yourself on a track and go race on that track and go do and upgrade your cars, tune your cars, blah blah blah. I have not gone back to that game once, and I don't think I'm going to. I played some chunk of it pre-release and started getting into it, and like, it's beautiful. It is I wrote along. I wrote something that is on the Patreon that is available. You can go to patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann and read more about it. That is where that I've talked a lot about it there. In terms of just like, I felt like Motorsport was a game that really needed to kind of figure out its identity. In a world where the last two games have been Forza Horizon games, and they've been, the Horizon series is like loud soundtrack, it's fun first, it's, open world racing, crazy stories, crazy taxi references, like all the stuff they've done over the years, Hot Wheels, whatever, like weird shit. So there's room for Forza Motorsport to kind of carve out a more serious alternative now. And that's sort of what they tried to do here. The game has a safety rating now, the way Gran Turismo Sport did, where when you're racing online, if you get into collisions and stuff, it will say, your safety rating went down. And I found that to be a really good blinking signpost that said, this is not the game for you. Not that I enjoy playing online racing games and just like smashing into everybody at the first turn, like, because that's dumb too. But to have incidental contact during a race that didn't even seem like it was my fault, to then have an impact on this rating that it hasn't even shown me yet, because I'm so early in the, was so early in the game at that point. It was just like, fuck this, man. I don't have time to. I don't have time for this. Like, in a world full of so many other video games out there, is this the thing I want to? And some people will absolutely want to do that, but that's not me. And then I guess, like, so my takeaway was like, well, someone's going to like this, but I don't think it's going to be me. And then in the last week or so, I have seen tons and tons and tons of more criticism of some of the game's various systems. You level up cars now, and that will govern what sort of upgrade parts you can put on it. And at a glance, that seemed like a good system. It seemed like it, provides some progression. It provides some rewards for sticking with a certain type of car and what have you. And I felt like, okay, the game needs some kind of structure, because they've gone back and forth between like, okay, well, we know you just want to buy whatever car and do whatever to it and go race, so we're going to do that, and then we'll shape the campaign around whatever car you're driving. And then there's been the other end of it, which is like, here, drive garbage cars for the first 4 hours, and then maybe you will earn the right to drive less garbage cars. And neither of those extremes are actually great, from like feeling like you're progressing or feeling like you're having fun. In a game like that, where you're trying to take cars seriously and do, like that sort of stuff. Like that's a hard thing to solve, because they still haven't solved it. I think that the systems they put in place around the car leveling up and everything else seem like the right idea, right up until you have to go online, and then you're like, oh, I don't have any levels in this car that I need to drive to play this, and to do the things that I want to do online, and so it almost seems like they hamstrung parts of the online experience by having these kind of leveling up processes for the cars that you would primarily do offline. For me, a lot of it comes down to just how seriously they take it. Like the game loads you into, when you go to do a race in that game, you don't hit a button and then go, oh, here's the next stage in the campaign, here's the next stage in the career, here's the next career race I'm doing, let's go. Instead, you pick that, and then it loads you into a practice session, and it's like, okay, now do 4 laps of practice, and then you'll be able to race the real race. And I'm not, again, for someone, that's how normal car racing does it in the real world, right? I'm not in the real world. I don't care enough about car racing to want to fuck with this at all. And so I don't want to have to load into practice. every single time. Now, you can skip practice. They've hidden it. You have to go like you're going to quit the race completely. But in there is a skip practice. And then it pops up something like, are you sure you want to skip practice? Because you'll level up your car and you'll earn more credits if you complete the practice and do all this. And you're like, fuck. Like, so it gives you shit every time you go to skip practice. And you lose out on resources by skipping practice. Which is the car XP, which is what you want to get so that you can, do better with your car online and blah, blah, blah. So it's a bunch of like, speed bumps in the road. There's just a bunch of stuff in that game getting in the way of the stuff in that game. And if it got out of its own way, I think it would be a fun and fine experience. I think you could use a soundtrack. I think it doesn't. So a lot of games, when you get a game early for review purposes, they will send you some kind of documentation. They will send you something, and this varies in a lot of ways. For some games, it's like, hey, we've got 2 patches planned over the next week. This first one will hit on this day, and it will fix this, this, and this. And then in time for launch, when people actually start playing the game, we'll have this patch out. And so it's like kind of, future patch notes. Sometimes it's just like, hey, here's the number of maps in the game. Here's the number of hours we expect it to take. And here are the different modes. And here's just kind of an overview of the experience. In the notes for Forza Motorsport, they helpfully included something that was like, and remember, Xbox users can also launch the Spotify app and listen to their own custom soundtracks while they race. And I read that before I had played the game, and I was like, that's a weird thing to include. Because you can do that with that's something that you can do with a lot of Xbox games, I guess, right? That's a normal thing. And then I got into it and started playing. I was like, oh, there's no music. There's no there's no music. So they're like, if you want some, you can always, like, I could also like take a headphone out and put one in. I could, turn on the stereo, and if you want to listen to some music, if you have your phone, you could play music on your phone. Like, I could do a lot of things. Again, it's one of those things that just kind of comes to the idea of it as this. It's a serious game, but it's not iRacing. It's not like so far over the line that, you're like, it's impenetrable. It still has all the assists and all the different things. And so it's this weird situation where you're like, okay, in a lot of ways, it's going out of its way to be more accessible. Here's all this level of assistance. You can have it break for you if you want. I'm like, okay. Or you can turn all that off and it's a serious car racing game as far as console-based serious car racing games go, right? I mean, I don't want to have the it's not a real racing sim because it doesn't do, like, people are weird about that stuff. But then it doesn't, it doesn't go far enough. Like, it's not just a level of assistance that it needs. It also needs, The problem with skipping practice is that it does a full load into the race. Then you have to wait for it to actually begin. Then as soon as you get control of the car, you can pause the game and go and quit practice. And then it comes out and loads all over again and loads you back into the race. And then you can race. And that's dumb. Structurally, that's dumb. I don't know. Like, it's one of those things you kind of look at and go, who did they make this game for? Because it feels very narrow. It feels like very, like, okay, yeah, you've got all these assists and everything, but like clearly you're trying to make something that is appealing to a much hard, like to the sort of people that will want to do practice, basically. And I guess they can't have it both ways, at least in the confines of a Forza Motorsport game. And so as a result, playing this made me think I should reinstall Forza Horizon. Also, yeah, I have seen, I can only speak to my own experience. I played it mostly on the PC and have not been satisfied with the performance there. It's been, it has a lot of automatic settings, and you can get in there and obviously fuck around with the different settings a lot too. But I found the frame rate to be very all over the place. In situations where there's not a lot of action on the track and whatever, suddenly it will dip down to the mid to high 30s. And then sometimes it'll be up over 90, up over 100, it's really fluctuates. A lot of games fluctuate. That's not the end of the world, but you feel it. And that's on I'm on a 4090 with G-Sync monitors and whatever else. A lot of things that are built to make you not feel it when the frame rate is all over the place. And it just stutters at times when the frame rate gets low. And maybe they've patched it since then. I have not tried it in about a week, really. So perhaps they have done more to it. I don't know for sure. But I messed around with the settings a lot and could not find one that felt like satisfactory for the level of hardware I have. On Xbox, I think it ran quite well with the time I did spend with it there, but I spent most of my time on the PC, and was not super thrilled with it there. So I'm sure that there's probably some more work to do on that front, in terms of patches and updates and whatever else. But yeah, I was not satisfied with its performance on PC at all. That said, at the end of the day, even if it ran at a rock solid, super smooth frame rate with all the ray tracing stuff turned on, that'd be cool. But I'm just not enjoying the game very much. And so that's sort of the main problem with it, is that it's the way that game is structured. I feel like I have been pushed out of the Forza Motorsport fandom or whatever. They have kicked me to the curb and said, you're not hardcore enough for this because you don't want to do practice or, whatever it is. And so I don't really know what to do about it, really. I need to go check the front door. There's someone at the front door. There's someone at the front door. I'll be back in a moment. Hold tight. But that's the thing, I think a lot of people will go like, oh, well, you just want to bang around corners and do this and that. And I'm like, it's not about that. It's the thing I actually want out of that I think that Forza Motorsport could actually be better at. And when it comes to especially because it's, again, it has all these assists that you can turn on that basically take a lot of the control of the car out of your hands and automate it in a way that anyone can do well at it. Whether that's fun or not for you, I think there's going to be a variety of things there. But I think that there's something to it, and I wish that what I want that game to do is kind of close the loop. So it's got all these levels of assistance. It's trying to take the racing very seriously. It rewards you for passing cleanly and all of this other stuff. But I don't know how to do any of that. I can stick to the line when it says hey man, here's where you should let off the gas. Here's where you should hit the brakes. And here's the basic racing line you should stick to. That I understand. And in previous games, I've done that and then turned up the difficulty and had a wonderful time with it. A good challenging time. Back on the Xbox 360, I played a whole hell of a lot of those Forza Motorsport games. I thought they were incredible games. Speaking as someone who always had a very strong dislike of the Gran Turismo franchise because of how it handled license tests and all of the other just junk in that game and not meeting players halfway. You know, Forza Motorsport felt like it was like lending a helping hand. But I think now it needs to do more. If they're going to ratchet up the safety rating and all of the other stuff there on one end, the other thing they need to do is teach you how to drive well outside of just a racing line. How do I pass cleanly? When do I pass? Why do I pass here and not here? What's the safe way to pass players? Because I don't know. I can take a corner really well when there are no other cars on it. I can do it really well. You show me exactly how to take that corner, and I can take that corner. But throw two cars on it. When do I do this? Why do I do this? How do I do this? Especially, you know, in these big circuit races, stock car races, and some of this other stuff where you're like, okay, all these cars basically have the same level of power. They have the same basic PI, the same basic whatever. Okay, well, how do I pass people correctly? What's the correct way to pass? Like, I literally, and this will sound dumb, but I'm willing to. I don't understand how real world motorsports work. The basics of it, obviously, you pass people and you don't want to get in collisions because that will hurt because it's the real world. But the license tests in Gran Turismo never taught me that shit. It was never applied. It was always just like, here's a way to do this. It's like, okay, no, I need it in a real setting. I need some real, genuine instruction, not just like, here's a challenge, do it under 32 seconds, and then you can drive the fancy cars. Like, no, I need like I think a really handy walkthrough of like how, like, the science around passing people, the science around clean driving, with other cars on the track, I think is something that would go a long way. Because again, the assist settings and all that other stuff, you can adjust that up and down, and hey, you can take corners all day long. If you can't take corners in that game, if you're playing Forza Motorsport and you can't figure out how to take the corners, I don't know what to do, because that's they've made it so stupid, dumb, easy. With the levels of assistance and everything else that you have there, they've made that aspect of the game so adjustable and so attainable that I have gotten better. Playing Forza Motorsport on the Xbox 360 is actually what got me to appreciate Gran Turismo as the Gran Turismo series continued to evolve and everything else, because I picked up enough about cornering and how to, you know, the right way to drive at speed and entering and exiting corners and how these cars are going to handle when they're trying to do it quote unquote realistically. And so playing Forza Motorsport gave me an appreciation for GT that I never had before. And Gran Turismo eventually kind of moved in a direction where they started having levels of assistance and whatever else as well, which certainly helps. But again, that aspect of like, okay, now when you get online, we're going to always be watching you, and if you crash into other players, we're going to admonish you for it. Like, okay, fine. You need to teach me how to do it the right way then. Gran Turismo Sport did not do that. I had to go through all of the dumb Gran Turismo Sport shit in order to play it online, and I did not come out of that any smarter. And so I feel like there's a gap there that this game could solve if it had that sort of stuff. But like that, again, like maybe most of the people buying Forza Motorsport are already, they don't care. They're either going to bang their way around the corners, or they already know how to overtake appropriately and whatever else. So I don't know. Like, I feel like they're stuck in this really weird miasma. They're stuck in this funky middle ground where I don't feel like that game is hardcore enough to really satisfy the people that would want a more hardcore game. And as someone who doesn't want a more hardcore game, I am really dissatisfied with a lot of the stuff they've done to it. So I don't know. I don't know where to go from there, other than they'll make another Horizon someday and I'll just play that instead. That's fine. Driving laps on tracks is really not my speed anymore anyway. I don't want to, I did all that. Like, that's kind of the other problem, is I played so much Forza on the 360, and there are some some of these tracks that they are now legend, the carry forks, they're real world tracks, and now look at how much better it is. when they said at Gamescom, when they were like, oh, the full Nordschleife, whatever the Nürburgring, whatever, it's not going to be until spring. And people were slightly up in arms about it. I was like, who cares, man? Make up more tracks. Just like fuck real world racetracks. Like I don't care. I don't care about like you put the same 18 tracks in this one that you had in the last 6 of them, because those are the ones that are real and those are the I don't. It's just that's not why I'm here. So eventually, all of that stuff just adds up into, hey man, they'll come out with another Forza Horizon someday, and yeah, I'll play that. And that's fine. Like this isn't like I have complaints about Forza Motorsport, but ultimately, if it just means that game's not for me because they had to find ways to differentiate the 2 Forza franchises, and they took that chance to try to make Motorsport more of this because they know that they'll have more Horizon someday, then it's like, okay. I would prefer that we go hardcore in the arcadey direction, which doesn't happen anymore. It doesn't happen enough anymore. And Need for Speed is, I've been dissatisfied with the last several Need for Speed games. The Crew Motorfest is not bad for what it is. It's certainly better than the other Crew games as far as I can tell, but more fun driving games, I think, would be very welcome at this point. And so this led me to trying to look up and figure out what is happening with the upcoming game from Three Fields Entertainment, Wreckreation, W-R-E-C-K, Wreckreation. Now, Three Fields, you may remember, was started by a lot of the original or some of the senior level crew at Criterion from the Burnout days. And Wreckreation was a game that got a demo at some point and seemed kind of cool back then. It's still listed as coming out this year, but I feel like that can't possibly be the case anymore. Here we are in October, and they haven't said much about the game in a very long time. So I doubt that Wreckreation is still going to make it out this year. I could be wrong, but that's also a THQ game. That's also an Embracer joint. So who knows what will happen here? Let's just Oh, they don't have a Steam page for it? No, they do. Okay. Yeah, it just says coming soon on their Steam page. So, and they have not put any updates out since August from the looks of things. So, I don't know. That seemed like it could be fun. It must just, it must just be the case that like people stopped buying driving games like that, right? That was what was the game? The kind of competitive online driving game that had loadouts, and it was like more combat-y, and then they shut down. Not Drive Club. No, we're talking about a good driving game. It happened. It was like last year, a year before. But it was the it was some of the team that did the MotorStorm. And they had put this thing out. Anyway, Onrush. That is what it's called. Onrush was cool. But they, it was hard to find players for multiplayer in that almost immediately, and eventually they did shut down the online in that game, I guess. And so I think that stuff like that just points to a world where there's just not enough players looking for that type of game to support it, and so what do you do at this point? It's kind of you could say that's one of the symptoms of just kind of the weird place that the video game industry is in when it comes to including multiplayer in your games, right? It's like, Call of Duty casts a long shadow. Fortnite, Roblox, I'm sure, just like the titans of multiplayer gaming. You know, we saw Hyenas just get canceled, which is probably the right move because that game was not going to attract enough of a player base. It just wasn't good enough to attract a player base to last. And so how do you, you know, these are games that would benefit from online multiplayer and all of this sort of stuff. But if the player base isn't there, then what's going to happen there? Yeah, X Defiant. We talked about that in the wake. I have been thinking a lot about X Defiant lately because it got delayed again, seemingly indefinitely. Hot Wheels Unleashed 2 is it out this week? I just got a hold of it. I have not tried it yet. Let's talk about Modern Warfare 3 because I've been thinking a lot about X Defiant. The last 2 weekends, the Modern Warfare 3 beta has gone on. They housed it within the launcher for Modern Warfare 2, and it's all a weird. It's like you're launching a game to then close that to launch another game, and you're like, this, just let me launch the game. You did not need to unify all of these on one launcher on Steam. This is a weird thing to do. But Modern Warfare 3 is really interesting. The changes the changes they have made over Modern Warfare 2 are just a little weird to change up the feel of that game in ways that, again, if you're only casually playing Modern Warfare 2 and you go to Modern Warfare 3, you're definitely going to be like, this is the same fucking game. And you know what? You're not wrong. But the movement in Modern Warfare 3 is so different. There's a speed to it. There's a skittery kind of skittishness. We talk about slide canceling and some of the other stuff that, like, you know, people got weird about when it got taken out of the, you know, kind of last couple of Modern Warfare games. And it does have some of that stuff back in there, and you can cancel out of certain animations but like, there's the thing that really kind of solidified it for me. Like, you can jump up on, like, you know, you're at like a waist high wall that's like a bar, or, you know, like the height of a bar. If you've been to a bar, you can run up to that fucking thing, hit the A button, and you were over it. You were like bam, 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 bam. You have mantled the fuck out of that thing, and you are shooting again. It is, you know, you are sliding on your knees and holding the gun sideways and going, brah, and then as soon as you stop sliding, you hold it up to aim properly and keep shooting. And it feels very freeing. I was not really big on the whole slide cancel thing, as like pro players like to do this thing, and because it just, you know, it's annoying a lot in practice. But the way they have the way they worked over the movement in Modern Warfare 3 is really fucking cool. Like, it feels nuts. It feels like you are just more nimble. It feels like you have, like, just more options at your disposal. Like, there's guys that are like killing me because they walked sideways. So you're like, oh shit. Like, there's just more to the movement overall. And so it's not just some gimmicky trick, the way Call of Duty will always have, like, oh, this guy just does the dolphin dive every time he sees you, and he gets you 1 out of 5 times because you were aiming high and he dived low, you know, whatever it is. It feels like a collection of different things like that give you options in a like a point blank situation, even, to maybe survive. In conjunction with that, they have raised the time to kill in a way that, like, for the first hour of my time with the beta, felt terrible. Because I was always letting off the trigger 1 bullet too early. But once you get used to that additional survivability combined with that movement actually gives you time to react and do something weird and have it work. As opposed to just like, I was running away and I got shot in the back and I'm dead. It's like, no, I was running away, I got shot in the back, but I just managed to get away. And then I turned around, hit around this corner, came out, reapproached, re-engaged, and killed that guy. That stuff feels really rewarding and feels skillful when you pull it off. And so it's not some, it ain't Titanfall, right? You're not running on walls. You're not doing anything too crazy here. You're sliding on your knees and then you're standing back up. Or you're sliding on your knees, you're standing up, mantling. You're doing, there's, but this feels like it's boots halfway on the ground, if that makes any sense. And I actually think it really feels good. And the time to kill stuff, like it taking a lot longer not a lot longer. It feels like an eternity if you've been playing a lot of last year's Call of Duty game. Like you go like, why aren't these people dying? What the fuck is happening? Why is this is broken? Whatever. But as you kind of dial all that stuff in and spend a little bit more time with it, it actually seems kind of cool. And I kind of came around on it. Initially, I was like, this is just the same shit, and I don't understand the changes they've made. I'm not really sold on them. And then I didn't spend a ton of time with it. I think I hit like level 20. You can go up to level 30 in the beta. And by the end of that time with it, there was just enough weird little stuff. It almost feels like, and this is derogatory in some ways as well. Like, keep in mind, it feels like Modern Warfare 2 Champion Edition. It feels like Modern Warfare 2 Turbo Hyper Fighting. It feels like Modern Warfare 2 Dash. It feels like Ryu and Ken have been the same for a long time. What if one was faster and the other one was more powerful? Like, what if we did this move here? And then suddenly what if you could just do hurricane kicks in the air? Fuck it. It feels like that. Like the adjustments they made to the movement being like just skittery and kind of weird and a little out there compared to the previous year's game, but not, you're not flying. It's not crazy. And some of the other balance changes and some of the things they've done to guns and whatever, like it just feels like an update to the previous game, which is a shame, and obviously, because a lot of it feels very similar to the previous game. It's, and on top of that, all of the maps in this game are going to be reworked, remade maps from a game from 2009. Now, I will grant you, Modern Warfare 2, the original one, is a fantastic game, and those were great maps. I came away from this thinking, man, if this was an expansion instead of a full price game, that would be awesome, because it would mean that all of the maps from Modern Warfare 2 would still, from last year's game, would still be there. And now they're not really committing to that. And now it's like, oh, maybe some maps will come in, but maybe not. It just feels really unknown at this point, because all they're saying is we're launching with remakes of all of the Modern Warfare 2 2009 maps. You're like, cool, man, there's a bunch of maps in the game from last year that just came out in the last season's DLC that no one is bothered to play because people are playing other shit now. Like, what if you just kept all those in there too? I mean, what if you just kept all the maps? What if this game had fucking 50 fucking maps? Like, why not? Right? What if you just put all the maps in there? And now the answer would then be like, well, we're still selling Modern Warfare 2, so if you want those maps, you should probably pay for Modern Warfare 2. And maybe they will eventually bring the maps in or whatever. I don't know. They haven't said. They have not gotten specific about it, other than it is launching with all of these maps that are all remakes of the 2009 maps. And the maps are good. Rust is in there. And people are like, yay, Rust is back. I'm like, Rust was in the game that came out. It was in the first Modern Warfare reboot, which I reinstalled and started playing it again. I was like, man, this was a fucking awesome game. It's weird. I don't know. Like it seems like they took out things like attachment tuning. Maybe this is just not in the beta, right? So we kind of, but when you max leveled a gun in Modern Warfare 2, it would You could unlock a bunch of sliders and shit that you're just like, this is crazy. And you would go watch some TikTok video of someone going like, if you want to do well in Warzone, turn this slider here and this slider here. And you're like, okay. It seems like that's maybe not there anymore, which is probably for the best. Instead, they're doing this thing called aftermarket parts. And so it's unlockable shit for guns that it's... So for a pistol, this is the one they showed before the beta started, and it's the only one I messed with. But basically, you have a burst fire pistol in that game. 3-shot burst, whatever it is. And then at some point, you can level it up enough to unlock these aftermarket parts. They had them just unlocked later, like near the end of the beta. I think they just unlocked it for everybody. And what this is, it's a big, funky 3D printed shell for this pistol that turns it into a fully automatic kind of submachine gun looking thing. And it looks like shit because it looks like it was 3D printed. It looks illegal as fuck. Like you just look at it and go like, God damn it. Like I found myself looking at it going like, should this be in a video game? Should we really be glorifying? We're like halfway to ghost guns at this point. And what is that? Should that be in this? Should we be doing that? And so I thought about that for a while, and then I was like, you know what? If we're going to go down that road, then the game is glorifying guns all the way down. So why stop at 3D printed, weird, fucking mega illegal, crazy shit? Like you just look at it and like, I put the aftermarket part thing onto the pistol, and you see the shitty 3D printing on it and all this stuff, and you just look at it and go like, man, the fucking ATF's gonna break down my door with this shit. The fuck am I doing? Like it looked fucked. Like it looks fucked. And that's kind of cool because guns are fucked. They are super fucked. And so something about that, I don't know why that it pushed it over a certain line there that was just like, man, this seems bad. They'll eventually probably get some time on television for that stuff, I bet, depending on how far they go. Like, it just feels like a game where you're just like, you've unlocked the bump stock. And you're like, yeah. What? Yeah, fuck yeah. I'm like, oh, jeez. And that's weird. But also really fascinating. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting take on what they did last year. And for me, that's enough for me to kind of keep going and want to play more of it. For other people, I think they will come away from it with the opposite in mind and go like, this is, I mean, for a franchise that everyone criticizes year in, year out for like, oh, they didn't change anything. This one feels like, this is pretty close to the bone here. But I like what they've done with it, and it has made me want to play more of it. There's some stuff in there that I don't quite understand yet, even where they have something, I believe it is called a tactical stance. And so when you're aiming down the sights, you can push down on the D-pad, and instead of holding it up the way you're supposed to shoot a gun, they will instead hold it kind of down and diagonally. It's sort of like halfway between aiming down sights and hip fire, and different attachments will affect the spread of those shots. And so it's, that's probably useful for if you're using a scope in some situations, but you need to do some up close shooting or whatever. You can toggle back and forth. But it's a weird new thing that you look at and go like, well, they had to come up with something to put in here, I guess. And you're like, all right, I don't know. But it's fascinating. I'll give it that. And so to wrap back around to what we were talking about with XDefiant, a lot of the appeal, a lot of the stuff they said they were doing with XDefiant was, we're going to put all that cool movement stuff in that you like. The slide can, the fun stuff for the Call of Duty used to have. And Call of Duty put all that stuff back in. And it works better than it did. It's more fun and I think more accessible to a wider range of people than it was then too. And so you're kind of faced with, if you're the team making X Defiant kind of the one thing that they were, one of the main things, I guess. It's not like that game lived and died by one feature, but that was the one thing that I felt like I heard time and time again when people would talk about why they were interested in X Defiant. It was like, well, it's got all the movement stuff. It's got, you know, this movement and this and that. Like, okay, well, now Call of Duty does too. I don't know that I had an amazingly high. I X Defiant did not seem like a game that was necessarily going to light up the world and have a massive player base or whatever already. But now one of their big differentiating factors feels like it just got eaten up. And so if you're over there, are you just like, oh shit, fuck, So I don't know what that, you know, if I don't know what, if anything, that means for X Defiant. I mean, presumably they're so close to the end that they have to get it done and get it out the door. I can't imagine a world where they cancel it. But I would have said that about Hyenas. Yeah, I guess they won't have skill-based matchmaking, so maybe that's the other weird cornball bullshit thing they can lean on. But yeah, I don't know. That's that was something that as I was playing Modern Warfare 3, I kept thinking about X Defiant and just like, man, what little lunch they had feels like it maybe just got eaten. So we'll see. Do you remember what's the Intellivision Amico? You may not have heard of this. This was someone attempted to bring back the Intellivision name and try to make a new console. And they took a bunch of pre-orders, and they tried to take a bunch of pre-orders, and they had Office Space and all this other stuff, and then they now suddenly it seems like they have more creditors than Office Space, and so on and so forth. Something of a fiasco, I suppose, if you wanted to put a word on it. The console never made it to market. It was like kind of fuzzy if it ever existed in the first place. You know, you would have these videos that'd be like, oh, here's Amico hardware being assembled. We have one right here. And here's this, and you know, but it always felt a little smoke and mirrorsy. It never felt like, oh, here's a very plain and clear indication that yes, this is a real device, and that yes, this real device is about to come to market as soon as they can find enough money to build them. You know, they tried to do it all through a pandemic, and I'm sure that didn't help, but there was also just aspects of it from a business plan perspective that once you started to look at the numbers of like the limits to about how much money they were going to charge for games, or how much money they would allow developers to charge for games, and some of the other limitations they were going to put on people that way. It felt like one of those projects where they were just like scrambling to keep their heads above water in ways that now, when you look back on it, looks a little scammy. Some games were developed for it, presumably, because some of those games are now out on other platforms, namely the PC and I believe the Switch. I think that might be it. I don't think that they've come to other consoles just yet. I'm not sure, but Shark and Astro Smash have both come out. Dynablaster also came out, which is a Bomberman clone. It's sort of a different thing. The Shark and Astro Smash are kind of hey, these are remakes of original Intellivision games. They're on Steam for $15 each. They are abysmal products. It is like, I've played a fair amount of Astro Smash, the original, over the years. And for what it was, for when it came out, you're like, this is okay, I guess. I don't know. It's no Space Invaders, it's no Galaxian, it's no Asteroids. It's somewhere between all of those things and not nearly as good. But okay, Astro Smash. I guess Intellivision had to have something. And so they've remade that for modern gaming machines. And, added some weapon power-ups and some other little doodads and stuff here. Shark is you are a tiny fish and you have to eat smaller fish to get bigger. And then occasionally a shark appears on screen. And if you bite the shark's tail, you get points, but really you just want to avoid the shark. And there are pearls to collect. And that's it. They are some of the most bare bones video games that you could release in the year 20 and 23. It is striking how nothing these products are. How they feel like, Game Jam games have more depth than some of this stuff. It is alarming how little there is to Astro Smash and Shark. The idea that these were going to be games that helped usher in a new platform, that you were going to be like, yes, the whole family can enjoy Astro Smash. And then you play it and you're like, this is boring as hell. I would rather play the original Astro Smash because at least that has a classic retro aesthetic. And so now instead it's like, here's this game that looks like, they look like the early days of Xbox Live Arcade when developers hadn't quite figured it out yet. And so you had like a handful of games that were really good, right? You had Hexic and Geometry Wars and some of this other stuff. And then you had like Crystal Quest. And then you had like, some other games that came out along the way that were just like, I don't know. We don't know what to do. Like the early days of downloadable PC games, you might even say here. The early, like the early 2000s when digital, sales of like when companies were selling games on their website and they were just like, all right, this is shitty. Like, yes, but we remade Asteroids for a new generation. And you're like, this sucks, but okay. It feels like these games feel like they would show up on Xbox Live Arcade for 800 points and you would buy them and go, boy, these are barely video games. Like this is like phone games have more depth and phone games have had more depth for decades at this point. Like it's really, really thin stuff without a lot of thought into like, hey, what are the fun ways we could expand on this concept other than like, what if we made it 4-player? And Astro Smash has some weapon power-ups and stuff. So it's really crazy to see these games coming out because I think on their own merits, they're not fun. They're not something that a whole family is going to, wrap their, like, oh, the whole family can enjoy Shark. Like it's like something that like whatever company existed 3 rungs below PopCap back in the day would have put out on PC and you would have been like, okay, I don't know. Why would anyone ever play this? It feels like something you got for free off a website by accident. It's somewhere between the free game you downloaded by accident to like the early days of Xbox Live Arcade, where you had some games that were like super weird, thin concepts that were just like, okay, oh, you took a classic. You took a very old video game and made the graphics slightly more modern, and in the process made it play worse. And why did was this a student project for you? Did one person work on this in their spare time? Like it's the sort of thing that like them charging $15 for it on Steam is really nuts. But the part where it's like, oh, also these were going to be some of the cornerstone video games of a brand new platform. They're just like, no, they weren't. No, under no circumstances would these games be good enough to like put a solid foundation under the Intellivision Amico. It was never That would never have happened. And so I don't know how many more of these are still like in a state where they're going to come out. Shark came out first, and then Astro Smash came out like a week after that. So I don't know if this German developer that did these games, I don't know if they're going to be publishing more of them, or if that's it. But like, it's weird because they all kind of have similar interfaces for like picking when you're deciding if it's going to be a 1-player game or a 4-player game. Like the same interface is in both of the games. And the buttons you use to select stuff are all wrong and weird in a way that you're just like, what's this? This is just bizarre. It's interesting to see these things come out after all this time. Especially, with the Amico saga having been what it is. And there's still, I don't know, there's some guy out there claiming that like he's testing a phone app that's the Amico stuff's gonna all be on phones and it's gonna blow your mind, and it's a really weird. There's some really weird cult that popped up around the Amico of like, it's got like the same, it's got these same whiffs of grift, the way that a lot of crypto stuff does, and you're just like, I don't understand why anyone is going so hard on this stuff and trying to present it like it's going to be incredible, trying to present it like it's going to revolutionize it. Like the initial pitch for the Amico was a sound pitch in terms of just like, oh yeah, maybe there's a weird world in which this stuff, maybe this finds some kind of footing, I guess. Like, yeah, okay, like you don't know Jack proved that everyone's got if everyone had a screen in their hand and they were playing a game on a TV or something, like there's something there. And if maybe someone capitalized on that, maybe you could have a thing, and maybe something like that could work. But it was always a maybe, and it was always like I don't know. If the games are good, and none of these, like you're talking up a game called Cornhole an awful lot, and brother, get a grip. What the fuck's wrong with you? So I don't know. But yeah, there's still people out there that are like beating the drum for this like ongoing failure, this like rolling ball of failure that has been happening for the past couple of years now. You still have like a handful of people that are just like, you'll see, we'll get some news for you next week that's going to really turn your heads around, and the future of video games are here. And a lot of it is those same guys that get wrapped up in that whole thing of like, back in my day, all the video games were better, and so were the cartoons, and so were this, and so were this. And finally, someone's going to bring back they're just going to have fun, huh? We're just going to have fun with our video games and not have to patch them all the time. Like, all right. Like that's you're a nutcase at that point. You're like so divorced from the way the real world works and the way games are made and shipped and all of that like you're not operating in the real world anymore. I don't know. It's not to dwell on it too much. It's just like this fascinating thing. But I guess like that's the thing. Like you have just people that are quadrupling down on all sorts of bad science stuff and then saying, I did my own research. And the Intellivision Amico is the future. Because it doesn't use that 5G. When they send out the signal, when they send out the emergency alert signal, everyone's going to become a zombie. But not me. I'll be in my bunker playing Shark. Like, it's all the same. It's all the same thing. I guess. I don't know. It's really weird. I don't know how that happened. It's sad. And it's sad that the Intellivision name has been dragged through this mess as well. It deserves better. Because again, the initial pitch for the Amico, you go like, oh yeah, that could be a product. Yeah, that could be a profitable product. Is it, gonna sell 200 million units? No. Is it the next Wii? Like, no, probably not. But like, yeah, there's room for something like that in the market, sure. But maybe not anymore. Because they well, I don't know. I don't know what happened with it. I don't know. Someone fucked up something somewhere along the way. I don't know. Like I said, at some point it stopped resembling an actual product launch and started looking like we're going to shake the keys over here to raise some funding so that we can continue to have an office and continue to do this. And, it started looking like a real, I don't know, pyramid scheme looking thing or something. I don't know. It's crazy. Just crazy. That's it for video games. Why don't we get into the news? I kind of figured this was going to happen because it seemed like the kind of no-brainer attempt at a quick fix. John Riccitiello has retired from Unity. In the wake of Unity completely fucking up all over the place with trying to change its business model and trying to charge people for every install of their game, and then walking that back with something that didn't sound much better, and basically taking whatever trust they had built up with the game developers who were paying them to use their engine, all of that trust seemed to completely evaporate. And so the quick fix, the quick attempt to maybe there's something we can do here to try to re-earn some of that trust, effective immediately, and that is as of October 9th. So this has happened a little while ago. John Riccitiello will retire as president, CEO, chairman, and a member of the company's board of directors, effective immediately. James M. Whitehurst has been appointed interim CEO, president, and a member of the board. Relof Botha, lead independent director of the Unity board, has been appointed chairman. Mr. Riccitiello will continue to advise Unity to ensure a smooth transition. The board will initiate a comprehensive search process with the assistance of a leading executive search firm to identify a permanent CEO. Imagine interviewing for the Unity job. You got to be imagine there are people that are just like that, right? I mean, the people that they're like, I'm here to fix problems. What, your building's on fire? Let me in there. As long as you're paying me enough money to walk into this reputation burning mess. And so, Riccitiello gave a quote here. It's been a privilege to lead Unity for nearly a decade and serve our employees, customers, developers, and partners, all of whom have been instrumental to the company's growth. I look forward to supporting Unity through this transition and following the company's future success. Chad is right. Yeah, maybe we can get Bobby Kotick in there next year. Oh, God. And then he comes in and goes, the install fee's back, and now it's 30 cents, you fuck faces. Ah! Oh, God. And then he gropes somebody. I don't know what. So yes. That seemed like something that, as this was spiraling out of control, you're like, oh, they're gonna pull the ripcord on this CEO thing, and hopefully and they will hope that will buy them some time to make a transition and try to earn back some of that trust. I don't think this actually changes anything for them, because it's not like they're going to bring in some CEO and everyone's going to go, oh, thank God, somebody sane is steering the ship, and I feel good about this. It's not like they're going to go, oh, we've rolled back all those changes and we're never going to do anything like that again. I don't see them doing that, but I feel like that would need to be step 2 in this process of re-earning trust, right? I don't that's the thing that actually got damaged. We can sit here and look at this is going to cost this person more and this person more, whatever. This is such a fiasco for them that every bit of goodwill they had in the video game industry just went up in smoke. And people don't like John Riccitiello. And people have not liked John Riccitiello for decades at this point. Well, decade, I don't know. Back from his EA days, I feel like that was when I first heard everyone really shitting on John Riccitiello all the time. And that never really stopped. But now he's out at Unity, and we'll see what happens there. But again, I don't think, for as much as people have built up Riccitiello as this completely evil, as he's the face of these problems, like all of that stuff. there's still just a lot of, this change does not fix the problem. Does it start to fix the problem? Maybe. Does it earn them another statement? Does it earn them like, will developers read the next thing they put out to try to see if they're actually fixing the problem? Sure. But they need to actually fix the problem, and that's not a personnel problem. It was a policy problem, and the personnel dictated the policy. So I doubt that Riccitiello just came up with this. He didn't, he wasn't like sitting in a helicopter one night scribbling it on a napkin on 20 cents. And if we do this, then I can have 2 helicopters. Yeah, I like this. I like this 2 helicopter plan. No, like, this is something that like large parts of the company and the board and blah, blah, blah had to get together and figure out, like, this is the change we're going to make. We're gung-ho about it because this is going to help us survive. Or, hey, we're living with it because we need to do this to survive. Whatever the situation was or they felt it was, they at least got to a place with it where they're like, all right, we're announcing this. This is the thing. This is, and I know that there are a lot of people here that fucking hate it and you think it's all going to blow up, but enough of us here at the senior level have decided, fucking thumbs up, that we're just going to go do it. It's not like Riccitiello did this and then every single person below him was like, John, you're setting the company on fire. And then he went, ha 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 ha, but my second helicopter. No, like, there had to be sign off from other people who are still at Unity. So this is kind of the Matrix situation. This was kind of the Xbox thing for a long time too. Riccitiello and Don Matrick, I feel like, are easy to confuse for one another in terms of like gaming executives that are that have a strong dislike about them, a stink on them, if you will. But it's not like all of the Xbox One's ideas were something that Don Matrick came up with on his own. He didn't sit there and go, this is the 100% of the plan. He approved of the plan. He did this, but there's people, and a lot of those people are still at Microsoft. Now, granted, there are different people steering the ship, and they have a very different direction, and I think that they've done a good job of navigating that shitty situation that they found themselves in through the Xbox One. And, you had Phil Harrison, who's no longer there. You had, there were more people that got out than just Matrick. Point being, look at where we are with the Xbox brand, and look at how, they just got out of court talking about how fucked they were by the Xbox One generation. All of the antitrust, all the stuff they just went through, where they basically just like were hat in hand going, oh, geez, guys, we're the worst company in the world. We're so behind. It doesn't matter what game we put out. Starfield's not going to save it. We're just over, like they spent all this time on that track. That's not just Don Matrick's fault. Some of the people whose fault it is are still at that company. But hey, point being, this is not something that Unity wipes away overnight, because if it was that easy, then Microsoft would have been able to wipe it away overnight as well. And they are still going through it. So I don't know where Unity goes next for this. I don't, if they're just going to stick with the revised plan that they rolled out and go like, no, this is it. We gotta stick to this at some point. Or if they're going to bring someone in and roll things back further, or, pivot, or, who knows? Who knows what they will do? But they will do it without John Riccitiello in the driver's seat. Which might be a good thing. I don't know. I never worked for Riccitiello. JR, people would call him. Back in the EA days, people who worked with him. I don't know. Sony is making a smaller PlayStation 5. You heard it here first. Breaking news. They are making a smaller PlayStation 5 with 1 terabyte storage. This is the rumored unit that has been going around for a long time, where basically you will be able to attach a Blu-ray drive to it and turn a digital console into a full-fledged console if you so desire. And yeah, this is like the car Marty, but it's the car PS5, basically. VideoGamesChronicle.com did some math, and well, I guess actually Sony did the math, and they're reporting it here, but it's reduced in volume by over 30%, and by weight by around 18 or 24%, depending on which model we're talking about. Someone did a side-by-side, because they put out the dimensions of it. I don't think anyone has gotten their hands on one of these yet, because they're not out until November. But they put out the dimensions of, hey, here's how these things are shaped. And so someone sat down with a copy of Blender or something and made a regular PlayStation 5 and a slim one so that you could kind of see them side by side. It's smaller. I don't know what else to tell you. It's smaller, but like it's smaller in a way you look at it and go, oh, it's not small like the PS2 Slim was small, because that thing's fucking small. But it is a tinier, daintier PlayStation 5. They have reworked the horizontal stand for these, which has me excited, because I don't know if you know this. The horizontal stand on a PlayStation 5 is completely necessary because of the weird shape that the bottom of the PS5 has, and 2, sucks. It's trash. It's slipping and sliding off of that thing all day long. If you ever have to get behind your PS5 to plug a cable in or move a thing around, it is going to fall off that stand, and then you're going to have to line it up right, and then you can't see it. It's best lined up when you're looking at the back of it, but you're not going to pull it all the way out of your entertainment center just to put it back on the stupid fucking stand. Sucks. The stand sucks. So the idea that like they're saying, hey, we've got a new stand, and it's this tiny little plastic piece, little kickstand looking thing that looks like it'll just fall off anyway. It looks terrible. But if it's sturdier than the base level PlayStation 5, God damn it, I might buy a slim PS. I have a sickness. I don't, this is anyway. Let's see. Let's just go over the rest of the details before we get into this. They will also sell a new vertical stand for $30 if you want to stand it up. Who has room to stand it up? What life are you living that you're like, I'm fancy free? I only have a PlayStation 5 and a television. I don't have speakers. I don't have anything else. It's just like, I can just set it right here next to the TV. Look at that. Unless you work in a Sony showroom. Who the fuck does that? No one. And so this will be $500 for the full-fledged model that comes with a Blu-ray drive. It will be $449 for the digital edition. If you want to turn a digital edition into a Blu-ray edition, you can buy the Blu-ray drive separately for $80, and it will basically, you replace the lower panel with a new lower panel, so it's not going to look like, you're not like plugging it in and it's just dangling off the side or something. It looks like the drive snaps to the bottom of the console, and then you replace the bottom panel with something that will just make it look like the other one. That also, I'm sure that simplifies their production process a lot, because it means they're only making one PlayStation 5 in this form factor. It's just a matter of, are they bolting the Blu-ray drive to it or not? You know, it's the same piece of hardware either way, whereas the original one was, you know, it was like a whole built separate thing. It wasn't just a bolt-on thing. So that's probably smart for them. Like, I'm sure that there's some cost savings there. Probably also opens up production lines if they wanted to perhaps make a professional PlayStation 5 somewhere down the line. I don't know. You will still be able to put another, you'll still be able to add a drive to it if you want more storage space. They will phase out the original model once these are all sold. Once those are all sold, they will be gone, and this will be the only model that they make going forward. Up until they make a new model or do whatever the hell else they're going to do. And yeah, I'm dumb, man. I thought I was better than this. I'm not better than this apparently, but I thought I was better than this. Like, I'm looking at it, and my PlayStation 5 is tucked under this television behind me. I never see it. If I do see it, I just see the front of it, and it's all black, and it's there, and I never think about it. It's permanently hooked up to capture gear, so I don't have to fuck around with cables in the back of it. Unless I want to hook it up direct to the TV so that I can do 120 hertz stuff or variable refresh rate stuff, which the capture gear I have does not allow for that. But now I'm sitting here going like, man, that PlayStation 5, it's smaller. I would really like to get my hands on one of those. I really want to see one. I really want to touch one of those. I really want to hold one of these new PlayStation 5s. Really badly. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for why. It's the same thing. I don't need a new PlayStation 5, but I'm like, this thing's smaller. I want to see where it's smaller. I want to touch it. I want to put my hands on it. I want to get my mitts all on it. I want to see what it looks like under my thing. I want to see what it looks like under my television. I want one of these PlayStation 5s. I can't justify that. I want to put my mouth on it. No. Yeah, I don't have a good answer for you as to why. But there's definitely a part of me that's just like, I should get my hands on one of these, and I should kick the tires on one of these, do an unboxing or whatever. Perhaps I will. I don't. Perhaps I can convince Sony to send me another PlayStation 5. They did send me this one. So yeah, I don't know. I like the idea of the option of like, hey, buy the cheap one, and then later on you're like, oh, I do want to drive. I can, you're not asked out. You can go buy one. It's a little more money than it would have been if you would have bought one out of the gate. But that's also kind of nice because and this is dumb, few people will truly benefit from this, but there were cases where Blu-ray drives would break on a PlayStation 5, and they're hard to replace. All the way back to, I want to say, the PlayStation 3, the Blu-ray drives are married to the hardware in a way that makes it hard to swap them out for another one, without, overwriting firmware, doing weird shit to it. Though someone recently did find out how to overwrite whatever to basically convince their PlayStation 5 that it was in fact a digital PlayStation 5 with no drive instead of one that had a broken drive. But yeah, I'm sure that's like a DRM thing, but it makes it harder to repair those things and whatever else. So the idea that you can just like buy a drive and slap it on it, that's cool. What if you could? What if you took like I don't know, a 4 terabyte SSD and hooked it up to some kind of weird interface and then plugged that in where the Blu-ray drive went, along with some stuff that could convince the PlayStation 5 that, no, this is a disc. No, trust me, dog, this is a disc. No, there's nothing but a disc here. This is what's here? A disc. When the PlayStation 5 asks you, hey, what's hooked up to the bottom of me right now? If it just would respond, it's a disc, son. It's a disc right there. I assume that they have spent a lot of time thinking about ways to prevent that shit from happening. But yeah. That was my other thought, was will this eventually open some weird door to, will this create piracy problems for them down the line? I don't know. Analog. The makers of the Analog Pocket and the Analog Duo, which I believe is out relatively soonish, have announced plans to release an FPGA-based Nintendo 64 console that they are calling the Analog 3D. They have not really given too many details here in terms of, what they're doing. There's an interview with Paste that the opinionated head of Analog has given some quotes. I lost that article. God damn it. What is it? Christopher Tabor? Is that his name? Basically, they're going to do the same thing that they have done with a lot of their other FPGA-based platforms. It will have some display settings and potentially some options to, if you want to overclock a CPU to fix some frame rate issues that the original game had and blah, blah, blah. You will have those at your disposal. They will have some display options as they have had in the past. Basically saying it's, hey, it's going to be the best way to play N64 games pretty much. And that there's an order of magnitude of, like a much larger FPGA guts you will need to properly do an N64. The analog products, I have I think that they are incredibly good at doing the thing that they set out to do. I just think that the idea of selling an individual console for each individual platform is maybe wasteful wasteful is not the word. It's just like, I'm not, okay. If I'm going to go set up a TV with a bunch of older gaming platforms, I'm not looking to just like pull the N64 out and then put another box in its place. I am looking to have fewer boxes. I am looking to have fewer devices. And the FPGA, the whole point of an FPGA is that it can be kind of rebuilt and recoded on the fly. And so you have multiple devices from analog that from an FPGA perspective could just be one thing with multiple plugs for different the controller situation would be different, but there's no reason, as far as I can tell in terms of logic units and whatever else, that like the FPGA based SNES that they put out should also be able to run Genesis games. Instead of them putting out one that is built for a Genesis and then them putting out they have one in the works that is going to be a TurboGrafx. And now here's one that's going to be an N64. N64 is certainly more complicated than those other platforms. And, obviously there's a whole thing. Kevtris, the coder that has built a lot of analogs, FPGAs, has built a lot of the software, firmware, whatever, the sort of stuff that powers this, the brains behind that operation in a lot of ways. Always had this device in mind that would run multiple consoles, that would run games off of multiple consoles and all of this. And then he got wrapped up in all this, and now they put out one or two a year and sell them all separately, which, hey, they're running a business. So, of course, they're running a business. Like, of course, they're going to do this. This is the way you run a business, is you sell 4 things instead of one. But for me, the use case actually becomes the problem here, because the other thing they do is they are building platforms for people who want to use real cartridges, and I'm over it. I'm done with CDs and real cartridges and all of that bullshit. I just don't want to fuck with it anymore. I don't want to sit here and have a mess of stack of cartridges. I wanted to play some games, and so now there's 20 carts sitting around that I have to go put away. We're beyond that as a people. Flash carts got beyond it a long time ago, and obviously you can use flash carts with a lot of these devices, but also there's no reason why you couldn't just load these games off an SD card. And so that ends up being a situation where, like, officially these devices never do that, but unofficially you can install some weird backdoor firmware that unlocks the ability to load games off SD cards and some other fun features as well. In a world where the Mister exists, which is an open source FPGA based platform that runs a wide swath of platforms, including all of the platforms that Analog has shipped a device for thus far, It's a tiny box about this big. And it can, I have a shared drive on my network, and it reads files from there. And it works great. It plays PlayStation games incredibly well. The Saturn core is coming along. The Saturn core was recently bumped up to being officially released, but it does still have audio glitches and some other issues with it. It is not perfect. And the developer of I guess he did the GBA core for the Mister and the PlayStation core for the Mister, is working on an N64 core now as well. And it's been coming along literally every day. He posts a new build of it that does a little bit more. So at the end of the day, Analog's devices are just not for me. Someone somewhere, that doesn't want to dick around with all this other stuff, and they're just like, here's what I understand: putting a cartridge into a device. And if that's all you ever want to engage with, then that stuff's for you. It's very plug and play. It's very easy and awesome. That's great. It's fantastic. Their devices are really well made. The interfaces are often nice as well. And cool. But I'm looking for something more. There's talk out there of more powerful platforms than the Mister potentially coming around. There's a group of people teasing something called Mars. We'll see if that ever comes to pass, and what they can target there in a more advanced and significantly more expensive FPGA-based device. I would be interested in something like that, but I don't want to. I'm certainly not going to, especially for the N6, I'm certainly not going to go spend money on an FPGA-based N64 and go, hooray, now I can play N64 games. Though perhaps they will open it up. I did buy one of these because I happened to be near a computer when they went on sale. Maybe not the smartest move I've made, but I did buy an Analog Pocket. They came out with some transparent colors ones. So this is weird, man. So the Analog Pocket has been around for over a couple of years now, I think, right? But they have been back ordered like crazy. And so when you order one now, they're like, oh yeah, hey, we'll ship it in 2023. And then now a couple of times over the last few months here, they've been like, all right, everybody, next week, we're going to be taking pre-orders on special limited edition versions of the Analog Pocket that will ship within 2 weeks. And so my big thing was I didn't want to order one and then not know when I was going to get it and then sit here for a year or more waiting for it to come out. Which is what people have done. People that ordered one a year ago are in some cases just getting them. So they took orders for these limited edition transparent color ones. They did a glow in the dark one as well. And then it showed up in like a week. I'm like, okay, cool. Because I didn't want to wait around, but I got it, and I don't know. It's a smaller FPGA than I guess I'll leave the technical details aside rather than get into the nitty gritty of it. It's got 2 FPGAs and blah blah blah. But so this is built for Game Boy games primarily. It's got a cartridge port on the back of it, and they want you to plug in carts. And I'm not going to do that. Because they also have, they created a standard, or they're trying to create a standard that they called Open FPGA. And you can basically, it's a way for other cores to be installed on this without having to flash firmware and do all kinds of weird stuff. But it doesn't have access to the exact same hardware that the built-in Game Boy support, which this will also, from a built-in perspective with cartridge adapters, they're saying that you will also be able to play Game Gear, Lynx, and Neo Geo Pocket games on this, I suppose. And so you could buy cartridge adapters and do all that stuff. Who's going to do that? But people have then ported the NES and a bunch of arcade games, so you can play Bad Dudes on this. You can play The Simpsons and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on this, and other stuff that also appears on the Mister. And This thing is funky. The menus are not great. Like a lot of the other analog devices, when you're loading things off SD card, it can only read so many files and directories. So you have to kind of manually, well, I had to manually do it, break your library up across multiple directories and all of this other stuff. But it's not as powerful as the Mister. This probably would never run a PlayStation core. But you can play ColecoVision games on it and Sega Master System games and, you know, all of that sort of stuff. And so I got it and I was like, I kind of bought it on a whim because I just happened to be sitting in front of a computer when the orders were opened up. And now that I have it, I'm like, I don't have any use case for this. Like there's nothing about this that I'm going to prefer over, because I think I'm at a point now where if I want like FPGA based stuff, I'm going to go to the Mister. And if I want something handheld, the accuracy stuff is a little less important to me there. And so the Steam Deck has actually been really helpful for that. And on the Steam Deck, I can earn retro achievements and everything's got save states and everything's got all this other stuff. And so that's been nice. But like this device kind of exists in this weird middle ground where I don't really have a lot of, like, it doesn't fit with anything. That said, my daughter got her hands on it and I loaded up Outrun and she started playing Outrun on it and discovered that she really liked Outrun. And so I was like, well, that's kind of cool, I guess. But it runs Athena for the NES. You want to play hot games like Athena, you can. And, if it plays Athena, I mean, you can't really go wrong. Right? Athena's a good game. It's a great game. All right. So I don't know. I got that. It's neat, but it doesn't fit. I don't know. It doesn't fit into how I'm playing games currently. So it doesn't seem like something I will spend a ton of time with. But still, I'm happy to get my hands on it because, having heard about it for so long, I was like, I really want to see this thing. And someone in chat said that they were saying that the N64 thing would not support Open FPGA, which to me sounds crazy because why, but I guess that's at some point that's just them protecting their business model or something. I don't know. It's weird. The analog, their whole thing is weird. FPGA stuff is weird. And the way it's been going, because like the promise of FPGA based emulation is that you are recreating these platforms on a chip by chip level. Almost in a way that if you had access to the code that they were coding to make these chips, you could make new ones. You could make new chips and repair real life consoles with them in some capacity. And so a lot of the cores are built that way, where they're, and they're built to be accurate. They're built to be weirdly accurate. But, and this has been the case with this N64 core that's in development on the Mister, the PlayStation core, I think the GBA core, but there's certainly more. Rather than approach it from the perspective of recreating the device chip by chip, instead the developers of those cores are creating emulators on a PC and then porting that work to the code, to the language used by the FPGA. And so it's like they're just kind of creating a higher level of emulator. I mean, it's all emulation. We don't want to get into the one of the analog talking points was like, no emulation. It's like, no, I mean, the dictionary definition of emulation is exactly what you're doing. You are just emulating at a different level that in theory is much more accurate. But something about the idea of like building, and I fucking, who am I? I'm not going to build anything. But something about building it from the perspective of like kind of building an emulator and then porting it to an FPGA as opposed to rebuilding it chip by chip is weird. It's not as real at that point. And so you have situations where like, and this is something that happened with when analog, the spell was broken for me when we got our hands on Analog's Super Nintendo, and I was doing stuff with it, and I believe it was Mortal Kombat 2 didn't work. And I was like, that's weird. And then I got a hold of a firmware update, and then it worked. I was like, well, wait a minute. If you're recreating these platforms chip by chip, then either you've done it or you haven't. You shouldn't, and again, I'm not technical enough to truly have this conversation, but like the magic, the promised magic of FPGA is it's exactly the same. It's better than ever. But if you're still like, oh, well, this game doesn't work and this game doesn't work, and you know, there's going to be bugs here and bugs there. There was an aspect to it that I was like, oh, okay, well, you know, maybe there's a typo in the code somewhere and they just had to fix that, and that's that. But like, you know, seeing some of these cores built out of emulators rather than the chips, just it feels like it kind of, the original pitch of what an FPGA is felt like it was the opposite of that. Either way, the games run, and they run well. So I don't know. Anyway, good on them for making an N64. I feel like I first heard of Analog's desires to make an N64, I think when that SNES was coming out. I think when that thing was coming out, we heard that like, oh, that we want to do, I think the story at the time was that they want to do N64, but there was something around some aspect of it that Nintendo still had some kind of copyright, like not enough time had passed. And so they were kind of waiting it out before they tackled N64. And obviously a lot has happened since then with the MiSTer and you know, the FPGA scene is much different than it was back then. But yeah, anyway. Hey, Microsoft bought Activision. What the hell? Xbox owns Call of Duty. What does that mean? That all the games are on Game Pass? What will PlayStation owners do? I guess this means that Call of Duty is never coming to PlayStation again, right? Is that what has happened? Jesus. This deal finally closed after probably a year or so of fucking around in court. This deal finally closed. We have not seen anything. I don't think we've seen any true benefits of that yet. You know, it wasn't like, hey, the deal closed and now all these games are on Game Pass, right? I don't think they've had like a big forward facing thing now, because obviously this stuff was a long weird fight. But Phil Spencer, you know, wrote something on the Xbox blog here where he says, and today we officially welcome Activision Blizzard and their teams to Xbox. They are the publishers of some of the most played and beloved franchises in gaming history across console, PC, and mobile. From Pitfall to Call of Duty, World of Warcraft to Overwatch, Candy Crush Saga to Farm Heroes Saga. Their studios have pushed the boundaries of gaming for players around the world. He kind of name drops Guitar Hero and Diablo in here as well. And then gets right back down to the kind of core Xbox message that they are always hitting on. Players have always been at the center of everything we do. And as we grow, we'll continue to keep players at the heart of it all. We'll continue to listen to your feedback, build a community where you can be yourself, where developers can do their best work, and continue to make really fun games. As promised, we'll also continue to make more games available in more places, and that begins now. Okay, so that begins now by enabling cloud streaming providers and players to stream Activision Blizzard games in the European Economic Area, a commitment made to the European Commission. Today, we start the work to bring beloved Activision, Blizzard, and King franchises to Game Pass and other platforms. We'll share more about when you can expect to play in the coming months. We know you're excited, and we are too. Whether you play on Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, PC, or mobile, you are welcome here, and will remain welcome even if Xbox isn't where you play your favorite franchise. Because when everyone plays, we all win. So, he's working in their taglines and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, this thing finally cleared. The other bit of news here is that Bobby Kotick has agreed to stay on through the end of 2023. That does not necessarily include them saying, and in 2024, dude is out, but presumably, dude will be out in early 2024. This was the thing people wanted when this deal was announced. You got to remember, like, the early kernels of this deal are that Activision and Bobby Kotick and a lot of management were being accused of looking the other way on a lot of workplace harassment type stuff, workplace abuse, sexual abuse type of cases, and there was a lot of like Bobby Kotick was briefed on this here, and he knew this is when he knew this, and this is when he knew this, and so on and so forth. And that was all coming to a head in a way that was, going to be a problem for people like Bobby Kotick. And so they sold the company. Smart of Microsoft to roll up, it's not altruistic on Microsoft's part that they rolled up and said, we can save you from the evil Bobby Kotick. It ends up, if that ends up being a good side benefit to this, then fantastic. But I think, the spotlight that was shined onto all of that stuff back when this deal was first announced, I think Activision has been trying to clean up their act over the course of the last chunk of time here, and getting Kotick out probably it doesn't necessarily close the book on this, because there's a lot of work left to do, right? We don't know ultimately, but Kotick probably knew too much for too long to stay in that role. And it's only because of how long this deal took to get closed that he was in his role as long as he was, because they were in the process of selling the company. And so why step down in the middle of that and blah, 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 blah. So word, I thought it was maybe Jason Schreier had said something about this on Bloomberg, that, in a general sense from the folks that he was talking to within Activision, that they were pretty excited about the idea of Kotick getting out and being out, what that means for them and their, that many of them are optimistic about the buyout, that Microsoft will be a better steward and a better place for them to work than Activision has been up to this point, which would make sense. And yeah, like, people don't like Bobby Kotick. Like we were talking about Riccitiello and MWIII. Like that's the Trinity right there. Those three guys, right? They're the and we'll see how it all shakes out. But Microsoft is such a big company that is more than just games, that they can't afford to fuck around when it comes to harassment and all of that sort of stuff. I'm sure that they've had internal situations that they've had to deal with over the years. What company hasn't? But I don't know. We'll see. As far as the integration of all the properties and all of that other stuff, we'll also have to wait and see there. Today is the day. This is not necessarily related to the sale, but today is the day that Diablo 4 is going on to Steam. We will see what this means for the long-term use of the Battle.net client, if that ends up getting folded into Xbox Live somehow, or if they try to replace their PC gaming store with the Battle.net client, or one or the other, or maybe they just don't touch anything. Right? Maybe they're just like, fuck it, it's too complicated. We'll see what it means for these games appearing on Game Pass. We'll see what it means for the future of Activision's portfolio of games and brands. I'm old enough to remember that Activision went through some real bad shit in the 90s, and I believe that this is when Kotick came in At one point, the company got renamed to Mediagenic because things had gone so bad that they got acquired, and they just you saw games shipping with the Mediagenic name on them for a little while, and then they finally rebranded as Activision again, and tried to kind of recapture that. It was just a handful of like computer game releases that came out with the Mediagenic name. Oh, man, I got to look that up now. What games came out with them? Oh, darn it. From 88 to 91. They were known as Mediagenic because they were also making business applications, but they owned Infocom at the time. Oh, and then so then Bobby Kotick came in and basically took over at the end of that Mediagenic era. Yuck. It was a big, weird corporate mess, I guess. As much as, corporate messes are much messier now, but for the late 80s, early 90s, it was a big, weird corporate mess. I'm curious to see what ends up happening here. The people have, I think, weighed in on mergers bad, mergers good, mergers neutral so many different times now that I don't know that I want to rehash all of that stuff. I think I'm on the side of there are some mergers that are just going to end up being pretty inevitable in this business, and those will lead to lost jobs. But ideally, when companies sell, you have a bunch of people who make money off the sale of the company, and they're able to leave and go start something new. And that's kind of how, we saw it with all of the, the 9 different Blizzard studios that are out there making 9 different RTSs with 9 different Chinese backers. I don't know what the fuck's going on. But, new studios ideally come out of this sort of stuff. And I think that we're at a stage right now where there's some number of layoffs end up being inevitable because of the nasty way this business has been lately. I mean, there's been people totaling up the numbers and saying, yeah, the gaming industry has had over 6,000 people laid off this year or whatever it is. Just like kind of crazy numbers. And so I don't know what we'll see out of this stuff. I think that Microsoft is at a point where they are hungry or at least need to be hungrier than they perhaps have been when it comes to aggressively putting out games. I think that, especially we're at a point where I think their last couple of big releases have maybe been not the world beaters that maybe you thought they were going to be, right? I mean, the Starfield is certainly big. It's doing numbers. Like I'm not downplaying it at all, but it also does not feel like it is, the massive, huge, gigantic hit, right? And Forza Motorsport, it seems like people are, not just me, I've got my reasons for sure, but it feels like the reaction to Forza Motorsport has not been as positive as it has been for that franchise in the past. And so, yeah, I don't know, man. I'm Starfield is something I've been thinking about a little bit lately because I finished the story. And the end of that campaign was such that it made me want to uninstall it. I was like, yeah, okay, I think I'm good. I don't think I want to. I'm not. There's more quests I haven't done here, and maybe someday I'll reinstall this and do it. But I think I'm good on this one for a while. And seeing quotes out there from, I believe it was Todd Howard, just saying like, we built this game with people playing it for a very long time in mind. Like, okay, where? I don't know. Like, will Starfield have the legs that Skyrim had? I guess is the question we're actually asking. And chat is filling full of no's. And I think I agree with that. You know, anything's possible. We'll see what the mod scene ends up cooking up. But, you know, is Starfield going to come out a billion times over the next decade? Is there Starfield Special Edition in 9 years? They're going to do just Starfield VR in 10 years? You know, like what's the trajectory for that? And does it line up with Skyrim? Because I think that there are probably people out there that would rather have another decade of Skyrim mods than Starfield. I don't know. I don't know. So I guess like that's my point, is like Microsoft feels like it is in there's a bit of a blank slate here where they've just come into ownership of a ton of different properties, some of which are still beloved, some of which are recent enough to be recently beloved, while some of them are, you know, ancient history that you could maybe do something fun and exciting with in a new context. You know, like a Pitfall. I mean, the first game he mentions in his note is Pitfall. You know, will they put Kaboom on Game Pass? Can we live in a world where Kaboom is on Game Pass? That's the real... Can I play the Venetian Blinds demo in 4K over xCloud? And if so, when? These are the questions we need answered. So I think there's a bunch of potential there in terms of like what they do with the library and you know, if they've got studios that are itching that you know, that happen upon a right idea, that they're like, oh, you know, we were gonna do, you know, maybe when Playground's done with Fable, that they sit down and go like, actually, shit, man, we have a killer idea for a new Pitfall game and we want to go do that. What do you think? You know, is that how the pitch process will work? Like, will there be a pitch process? Like, I don't know how their process works internally, but basically, like, you know, will there be room for someone to explore that stuff? I'd like to see them taking pitches from external developers on a lot of this. You know, you could see a lot of smaller scale games. You know, Pitfall doesn't need to be some $70 AAA fucking nightmare. Probably shouldn't be. I'm not convinced that you can actually make a good Pitfall game in this day and age, by the way. But like, you know, if someone sat down and said, we've got a really good idea for a new River Raid game. It's a cool arcadey thing, and you know, some indie studio pitched us this River Raid game and we're going to let them make it. Like, you know, handle it that way. The way that a lot of these longtime IP holders should handle their catalog, right? Is just like, hey, if you have a fondness for Hero and you want to make a new game about a guy with a helicopter backpack saving miners from mines, we're all ears. We're set up. We got a table at GDC. Come by and see us. Chris Charla is here. He's got all these skateboards. Come talk to us. They should fucking do it. I would love to see that. I would love to see this stuff happen again, you know? But I would love to see, like, you know, we think about the recent history of, you know, some of the franchises that have kind of got fucked into the ground. Whether that's by the Call of Duty machine or just by, you know, the way revenue shook out. I think what just happened to Tony Hawk is, that's embarrassing, man. That franchise is so important to, like, I think modern gaming. I don't know that it's necessarily influential anymore, because I don't think that those games are happening again in a major way or whatever, but like, that remake of 1 and 2 is amazing. It's just an awesome, awesome product. And I think it sets the stage for more of that. And whether that's the, like, you know, I don't know how you do that. I don't know what the situation is. Did a bunch of people leave? Is that team still together when they became Blizzard Albany or whatever instead of Vicarious Visions? Like, are they still there? Can you undo that? Can you be like, hey, did you save the Vicarious Visions signs when we sent you the Blizzard Albany signs, or did you throw them away? Did you keep them? People took them home? Ah, shit. Can we get those people to bring them back? Or is another team, do they need to line up another team? Whatever it is, like something to... I would love to see more Tony Hawk. Of course I would, right? I mean, yeah. Hey, guess what? What I'm saying is, I live pretty close to Woodland Hills, and I'm founding a new Neversoft. Whether you like it or not. No. You know, and whether that manifests in the form of a Tony Hawk 3 and 4, or, you know, continued remakes, or whatever, or all new games. I think all things are possible. With that, I think Guitar Hero just came up in a conversation. Was it Bobby Kotick interviewed by James Corden? Did I read that right? I was in a fugue state for a little bit, so that could have been something my brain invented. The idea of James Corden coming in and interviewing. But you know, Guitar Hero kind of came up a couple of times. I don't know what you do with Guitar Hero. We're living in a world where Best Buy is getting out of selling physical media. They are going to continue to sell video games, but like that's, you know, it's kind of one of those writing on the wall type things of just like, okay, well, what does retailer shelf space look like? Because if you have to sell plastic guitars, how do you do that? Do people want that? And so on and so forth. Let's bring back Skylanders. No, let's not bring back Skylanders. But my point is I think there's just a lot of Activision stuff and that gets swept under the rug over the last 10 years or so. You know, remember they had the Bungie deal. You know, there was like all this other weird stuff that Activision was kind of doing and kind of not doing. And I would love to see more of that coming back, as well as some plan for the classic franchises. There's some of the classic franchises to kind of make their way through. One thing Activision does have planned out is the Call of Duty franchise. There's a long interview with the president of Activision, a gentleman named Rob Kostich, on GamesBeat, and he said that they basically have the, you know, in varying degrees of completion, obviously, but they have plans in place for Call of Duty through the year 2027. That's the next, 4 years? 5 years, I guess, if we include this year, because this year's game is technically not out yet. But it's in the context of this interview is in the context of they are about to celebrate the 20-year anniversary of Call of Duty. It was 2003 when Call of Duty 1 came out. And it's kind of wild to think that Call of Duty has been around for 20 years. I don't think that, you know, obviously that franchise did not come into its own until 2007 in a mainstream way. And whatever. Call of Duty... What was it? They were pissed off at the Medal of Honor. It was like the ex-Medal of Honor team, and they were mad, right? Is that what it was? So they went and made Call of Duty. Is that how that went? And then when they formed Infinity Ward. And then they managed to get all fucking pissed off at their... This is a good pattern, man. If you can swing it, it's done okay for me. You know, hey, listen. You can find a way to just fucking make something and fucking sell it and get fired to go start something fucking new. Hey, it ain't bad. Whatever, they had their big lawsuit in the middle of all that when they... And then they formed Respawn. I mean, we're on a ticking clock here, right? And Respawn got sold to EA. The Medal of Honor people. And how long until Vince Zampella? But whatever, he's ascended up enough in the organization now that maybe he actually does stick it out, and maybe this is the, he's not just Respawn, right? But how long until there's some big fuck this? We're gonna go start something new. I guess actually, some people have left Respawn and started new studios already. So that stuff is already, it's happening out here, man. In the fucking hills, man. It's within driving distance of me. People are making new video games. It makes me crazy. Anyway, 20 years of Call of Duty coming up here in I think a couple of weeks here. I think is the actual official. But like Call of Duty 1, that was, that came out at a time when I was focused solely on console games. And so when Call of Duty came out on PC, there was a rise of people going like, this is incredible. Oh my God, this is they've redefined World War II shooters. And I remember playing it and going like, I don't know. That doesn't really do anything for me. I liked, Medal of Honor Allied Assault at the time. I remember that being quite good. But all those World War II shooters that were coming out on PC there for a while. And of course, Medal of Honor games were coming out on the PlayStation 1 and it was just like, whatever. Whatever. How is everyone doing? I there's probably fewer people here watching the show live than would be normally, because I'm sure most of you are busy playing Redfall on Xbox Series X now that it runs at 60 frames per second. We've all dropped everything, and that came out back on the 6th. According to videogameschronicle.com. And they've made some other changes as well. This is from VGC. This patch brings a performance mode, stealth takedowns, new controller settings, accessibility improvements, and much more. Explore an even more dangerous Redfall with an increased open world enemy population and new encounters. Read on for the full list of fixes and updates, blah, blah, blah. And it's a pretty long list of patches. A lot of aim assist and controller fixes, which actually, reading them here, I'm like, oh, that actually would make that game feel better. Lord Cow King in the chat says the Redfall category on Twitch has 5 total viewers. Okay. This is a thing they had to do. They could not just abandon this game and leave it as much as it might be, as much as they maybe did a good money after bad type deal. By continuing to work on Redfall, like you can't just ship a game and if it doesn't hit, abandon it. They can't. This is the right thing to do. These patch notes look like they will. This looks, reading over the patch notes, this looks like a better game than it probably was at launch. But I don't think I want to do this. Added unique open world enemy encounters in Redfall Commons, increased ammo pickups in areas surrounding the fire station. Yeah. I don't know that necessarily is enough that to make me want to return to Redfall. Also, from Video Games Chronicle, Nintendo has confirmed that it will be shutting down online multiplayer and like leaderboard stuff on the 3DS and the Wii U in April of 2024. Splatoon is kind of the one game that comes to mind. Of course, there's been a Splatoon 2 and 3 since then, but Splatoon 1 was a heck of a game. And so that means that will no longer work. Pokemon Bank will continue to work after the shutdown because of what that is. Mario Maker was shut down a while ago. I believe. Mario Maker 1, I thought that they shut that down quite a while ago. But maybe that was just a partial a partial shutdown, and then this is the kind of the rest of it. I'm not sure what the actual situation is there. But I have been mourning the loss of Mario Maker 1 for years now. This is it's been bad. If an event occurs that would make it difficult to continue online services for Nintendo 3DS and Wii U software, we may have to discontinue services earlier than planned. Great. There's a service out there that is not quite ready for prime time. I spent some time looking at it and registered an account, but was not able to get it working without real Wii U hardware, and I didn't want to dig that out and figure it out. But there's something called Pretendo, where they're attempting to recreate aspects of the online stuff for the Wii U and 3DS. And that is partially working in some games. So, you know, in theory, there are some games that you can play that way. You have to do some, much like when people wanted to play Phantasy Star Online on a Dreamcast after those servers were shut down, there was some weird shit you had to do to make that work. So don't come to that expecting it to be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna flip this switch on my Wii U and then it's connecting to this other. No, you have to do some other stuff that I have not delved into in any way, shape, or form, and may not. But if they're shutting down all of these services anyway, I guess there's no harm in fucking your shit up with some real filth, huh? Filthing it up real bad. So maybe that'll be the answer on a go forward basis. And as we said earlier, this is the last news story I pulled, but we talked about it, and there's not much to say. Diablo 4 is on Steam now. I should go check. Let's go check. They weren't taking pre-orders, which is always weird. I don't know. It's $52.49 for the base version, $75 for the Ultimate Edition. Crypt Hunter Pack and Soundtrack are the two pieces of DLC that they are selling in the Steam store. I'm sure that their full suite of microtransactions are there as well. They do have Steam achievements in there. It is Steam Deck verified. That's pretty awesome. I don't know that I have not played Diablo 4 in quite a while. I kind of forgot about it, and maybe I will, now that it is easier to get it to run on a Steam Deck, maybe I will reinstall it, because I was having a pretty good time with that as a Steam Deck sort of game. And I guess they're starting their new season or something. So I don't know. Maybe I'll give it another look, but I don't know. We've got a little bit of time for some emails. So why don't we move right into those? podcast@gar.bike is the email address for you to send me emails. We'll start with this one from Box Elder, from Chris in Box Elder, South Dakota. So, Phil Spencer is totally going to be at BlizzCon next month, yeah? Will there be anything from him if he is there, or will it just be a welcome to the Microsoft family type of appearance? I don't know how the business is done, but would there be plans that have been set up before the final deal where he could go, WoW is going on Game Pass or something? Could there be anything on the Microsoft side announced there? That's all I got. I bet that Phil Spencer is at BlizzCon as part of their opening thing. Why wouldn't he be? Yeah. Yes. Rad Jago says he'll be wearing a Blackthorn shirt. Yes. Phil Spencer in a Blackthorn shirt. Phil Spencer in a rock and roll racing shirt. Phil Spencer playing bass for 30-foot tall grunts, whatever their fucking band is named. All of that. And would they have an announcement there? I mean, yeah, BlizzCon is still what, another month or so out? It's November, isn't it? Yeah, November 3rd and 4th. So that's kind of a fast turnaround, but yeah, they could certainly have some kind of announcement there if they wanted to say, "Hey, yes, we're doing." I wonder if they would do that though. Think about the amount of money that World of Warcraft still makes in subscriptions. What would you do? How do you I wonder if they would put like WoW subscriptions onto Game Pass. It was like, hey, if you're a Game Pass Ultimate subscriber, you can just play WoW. Like maybe they put all the games and expansions on there, but you still have to pay an additional fee to subscribe, or maybe I wonder what they do there. Would it be worth it for them to just say, fuck it, if you want to play WoW, sign up for Game Pass? Because that gets people into Game Pass and part of a larger ecosystem, and maybe that makes some sense there, to take the hit there of just losing the standard World of Warcraft subscription. If they made WoW subscriptions part of Game Pass, I would reinstall WoW. I would dig my character back out and see what she's doing after all these decades. But I'm not gonna resubscribe to WoW. Let's not be silly. But what else? Yeah, I mean, so that's something they could do. There's something they could do, if they wanted to. I mean, Overwatch is already free to play, but maybe they do something where it's like, if you have Game Pass, you get all the characters, like they did with League. Or did they do that already? maybe they did that already. But yeah, they could have some kind of Overwatch related announcement around access to the characters and whatever else. If you have Game Pass, that would be something that seems like it would be relatively straightforward for them to do. They already have that with Overwatch. Okay, well, all right then. They could, they could put Diablo on Game Pass. They could. I don't know. I don't know that that's something I don't know if they want to rush into any of this stuff. I think these are all things they eventually explore, and they do most of them one way or the other. The WoW subscription thing being kind of the fuzzy thing, but like, but in terms of like having a big announcement for BlizzCon and whatever else, they could do stuff like that. I think that Diablo 4 on Game Pass, it might be a little soon to do that, because there's still money to be made. Like, they don't have to do it right away. They could, or they could wait a while and go like, okay, we think we've sold as many copies of this on Steam as we're gonna. So now let's put it on Game Pass. You know what I mean? Like, hey, sales on Xbox have hit this certain number here, so let's just throw it on Game Pass. And, hey, when Diablo 5 comes out, it'll be their day one. But, hey, let's we spent a lot of money on this company, so let's try to milk as much out of it as we can. That would be my guess on how they handle those sorts of things. Yeah, Heroes of the Storm is back. That's what they'll do. No, I don't know. They could put that Blizzard compilation on Game Pass, right? There's that thing that Digital Eclipse did some of. They did that. Rock and Roll Racing, all the important stuff. That Diablo 2 remake, they could throw that wherever they want. So yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if they had some form of announcement like that, but I don't know. I don't know if they go super hard. They just have like one little thing probably. It's just like, hey, more is coming, but for now, because there's work they would have to do to tie the Blizzard account. Well, they already did that on Xbox, I guess, because if they already have Overwatch benefits for Game Pass subscribers, then they have already done most, if not all of the work they would need to do to make that stuff work with other games. As someone who knows nothing about their back end, let me just make those grand assumptions, right? But yeah. Yes, I assume Phil Spencer will be there. I assume there will be some sort of announcement related to the Blizzard properties, whether it's Game Pass related or just something around that it would make sense for them to try to have something ready that isn't just hey, welcome to the family, I'm so excited to be at BlizzCon. Like they'll do that, but players are at the center of our experience. I remember all the late nights I had playing World of Warcraft back at blah, blah, blah. Like it'll be that speech, right? Adam writes in from the UK and asks, will Nintendo ever have achievements? And why don't they like them? I don't achievement hunt like I did back in the early days of the 360, but they still provide a small dopamine hit when one is unlocked. Achievements at either console or launcher level is almost an industry standard now. Why are Nintendo so reluctant to the idea, and do you think the Switch 2 will finally embrace them? This also extends to retro games, as with retro achievements, I'm more likely to play my retro games away from Nintendo online retro services. I don't think Nintendo is going to... I don't think they see a need to do it. I don't think they see a real benefit to doing so. I think you could make the argument that their online, the old game stuff they're doing would benefit from some kind of central profile or some kind of thing like that, and just might be a fun thing to add in. There were quotes when the 360 first came out and was first started doing achievements. I seem to remember there being quotes from it was probably Miyamoto. But the basic gist of, I think, what their statement was something along the lines of it was not as snide as this will sound probably, but it was more of a, we just make the games fun to begin with, and then you don't have to have this other external thing. Or that sometimes their games would have, because in a Mario game, you collect all the stuff and it shows you something. They've got stuff built in that way. I tend to agree that is a thing. It doesn't hurt, at most it's something you ignore, but it's like, or at worst it's something you just ignore, but I like them. I think they're fun. I don't care about them the same way I used to either. But I think that they are cool. Let's see here. Alex writes in and says, you have to remember, some of these are, we missed a little bit of time here, so some of these emails are a little bit older. My wife worked for, this is from Alex, who writes in and says, my wife worked for a contracting company doing moderating and quality control assessment for Epic Games. Her company, along with other vendors, also all got the chop with Epic canceling their contracts. Just her company let go over 500 employees. Other vendors also had to do the same. Tons of more people out of a job. So yeah, that's, kind of the, hidden in the numbers that Epic didn't necessarily announce when they were announcing their layoffs, is that they also cut some contracts with some external companies, and then those companies without those contracts in place immediately had to lay off people as well. The Bandcamp situation presented itself a little more openly yesterday than it had been, where it sounds like that over half of the Bandcamp staff has been laid off because when they sold Bandcamp, they didn't sell the whole thing with the team and the people and all of that. Instead, they just sold the tech and the platform. Which that happens sometimes. It's gross, and that happens sometimes. I still think that and maybe this team of people who just got cut from Bandcamp, maybe they are the right people to go and launch a new Bandcamp, to go and launch a new competitor to Bandcamp. I think that it seems like something that is If not necessary, then damn close to it. But we're at a point now where, you know, you have to wonder what Bandcamp is going to become under Song Trader, which seems like more of a marketing company than anything else. So I would be curious to see, you know, I was talking about it last time we were doing a podcast, I think, but it's just like there's aspects of the Bandcamp business that I'm certainly not privy to, but in terms of the raw, like, guts of what they're selling in terms of we're delivering files of varying degrees of quality and making generic store pages for anyone who wants one and then taking our cut, the Bandcamp business seems like it would be very easy to duplicate. Of course, there's a built-in community and all this other stuff that you would lose, but it sounds like that community is maybe ready to jump anyway. So if we should make a new Bandcamp. I should not be saying this into a microphone. I should be saying this to someone I know who has money. Say, give me money to make a new Bandcamp so that I can lose all the money because I've done something horribly wrong along the way or fucked up something. But like, I don't know. Feels like something that that there's room for a competitor. And if not, then itch. You know, people have found ways to cobble together music, selling music on itch, and I think that's, you know, not an ideal way to do it, but I think that there's a way to do it there. Anyway, I wonder, yeah, maybe the people who just got cut from Bandcamp will be the right people to launch that competitor to Bandcamp, but I feel like there's room in the market. People are very, and it's probably not some amazing $1 billion business or something, but I think you could probably run something resembling a profitable business on the Bandcamp model. I would assume. Otherwise, who would have bought it, right? All right, last email here. Alex from Framingham writes in and recommends Super 56, which I have installed. I just haven't had time to play it yet. It sounds awesome. It looks neat. It's on Steam. Alex says, I remember you talking a bit about Samba de Amigo when a new one was announced for Switch, and it feels like the Switch one just came and went. I played the demo for it, and the tracking didn't feel great to me with the Joy-Cons, so I more or less put it aside. But the Quest port of it just came out yesterday to absolutely zero fanfare. I picked it up after seeing some good user reviews. Turns out it's a direct port of the Switch game with an identical 40-ish song track list, feature parity, and the added benefit of it being first-person and VR. It plays perfectly and feels like the experience I always wanted Samba de Amigo to be. This feels like the final form of Samba de Amigo, and strangely enough, perhaps a favorite of 2023 for me. I strongly recommend it. Yeah. So I have been messing around with, because that game also came out on iOS as part of the Apple Arcade subscription, which is not a great way to play Samba de Amigo with your finger. That's not, we want to shake maracas. We came to shake maracas. We're not fucking around with this touchscreen bullshit. Yeah, I did not hear amazing things about the Switch version of it in terms of just the performance or whatever, the tracking. But a VR, yeah, it seems like, yeah, I mean, VR tracking on the controllers on a Quest seems like it would work much better than frickin' Joy-Cons. That's interesting. I don't know. The Quest 3 came out, and I feel like all I really saw, you know, you saw reviews that were saying, yeah, it's better, it's good. And then stories that were following it up saying, like, demand for it is in the gutter. No one cares. It is a better headset, and turns out no one wants one of those anymore. So I don't know. I don't know where this is. I don't know where this is headed. I would be interested in trying a Quest 3. I don't know. You know, I have a Quest 2 that I basically never use. And the idea of going and spending $500-$600 or whatever it is on a Quest 3 with the state of VR software kind of being where it's at and everything else. Like it doesn't. That seems like an insane thing to do. I don't know. All right, last one here. I don't. Against my better judgment, Lieutenant Jeff from Queen Station writes in. Says, hopefully raising a new child won't keep you away from all the exciting new developments coming out of CitizenCon, celebrating all the hottest news about Star Citizen's development. Do they really call it CitizenCon? Is that really what they really like? They really come out and say, yeah, CitizenCon. What do you do there? Talk about Star Citizen. Oh, you don't con citizens? I mean, we do that too, but shh. In case you somehow missed the most important gaming event of the year, there's nothing on the schedule for Squadron 42, the originally promised single-player campaign featuring Mark Hamill, Henry Cavill, and other Hollywood actors. They're dedicating 1 hour to reviewing all the ships they're selling for hundreds of dollars a piece, however. In fact, for the low price of $300, you can now buy the FBC Lightning, a ship that Chris Roberts promised they would never sell for real-world money. What an amazing investment opportunity. However, you can only buy this ship if you find an in-game golden ticket. Thankfully, the generosity of Chris Roberts has made them incredibly easy to find. It's been 11 years since the... Jesus Christ. It's been 11 years since the launch of the Star Citizen Alpha. Since then, a range of space games from Call of Duty Infinite Warfare to No Man's Sky to Everspace 2 have come and gone. Do you think that child number 3 will grow up in time to get a job and afford the majesty and wonder that is Star Citizen? No. No, I feel like eventually, like, you know, like regulators, the cops are busy. There's lower hanging fruit in the world of scams right now. When the scam police go after people, they'll get around to Star Citizen one of these days, but by then it will be much too late. I continue to have not much to say about Star Citizen. Other than, I don't really want to have anything to do with it. And every time I look into it, it looks more and more gross and more off-putting. And if I talk about it for too long, if I spend too many minutes or just like touch on it too many weeks in a row, I eventually get an email from someone affiliated with the game saying, like, I'd love to give you a walkthrough. And I'm, fuck, no. I'm not, I don't. You can call that staying willfully ignorant about a thing, but like, I just feel like I have heard too many things from people who are actually playing it to feel like I want to get any, I'm not, you know, I'm not going to be like, turns out Star Citizen's not so bad, guys. Like, I'm just not going to be that guy. I will instead be the guy that stays away from it, takes the occasional email on it from people who do follow it, and that's plenty for me. Star Citizen and Tarkov are the two games that you talk about them enough. Eventually someone emails you offering to show you the ropes on it in a way that I'm sure is totally forward and fine and whatever else, but there's something about it always feels real like, ugh. Anyway, that's going to do it for the show this week. Thanks to everybody for listening. streams will be, streams will be a little erratic here. We're still kind of figuring out a lot of new baby schedule stuff and everything here. So I normally I would stream on a Wednesday. Not going to do that this week. But I am aiming to line up some Nintendo games for Friday. So hopefully that'll be the next time you see me, because I've got a burning sensation in my body for 8-bit Nintendo games. We've got to get back to it. And because of the way the schedule has changed, I may experiment with some nighttime streaming here and there. I don't know. Some of that stuff is still... Everything has changed. Everything about our lives has completely been turned upside down. And so we're figuring out what the new normal is here around sleeping schedules and locations and all of this other stuff. So so bear with me a little bit here. Be back at it kind of as I can. But there's still a lot left to figure out on this end. So yeah. Anyway, I will post around on the Discord and everywhere else when the next stream is kind of a little more locked in. But tentatively, the plan right now is to stream on Friday and play some Nintendo games, and we'll kind of see how all of that stuff comes together. It's been a little catch as catch can here. But yeah, I'll post around. Head on over to patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann for more details on all of that stuff. You can read what I had to write about Forza. And yeah, I don't know. I'm going to download Sonic Superstars, and I don't know. I'm going to download Sonic Superstars. Will I play it? Probably. I don't know. I will have to at some point here. Got judging to do. So in the meantime, I'll see you soon. And have a good one. Bye-bye.